Welcome, everybody, to our very special Father's Day episode. A little early, but just want to wish a happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, guys. Perfect.
All right, so welcome to episode 10, season finale of the first season.
Yeah.
We've come a long way in these 10 episodes. Just to keep you guys abreast on what we're planning on doing is we're not going to end here. We are going to use the time that we're not recording to kind of market this podcast and get it in front of more viewers like yourself. And we're going to kind of play with some different formats. So we got some really cool ideas cooking up for season 2. Timing is TBA.
Yeah.
We don't really know when that's going to be, but probably before the end of the summer.
Yeah. Month or two.
So in our season finale, we're going to be talking about Dances with Wolves, Star Trek, the Next Generation,
TNG.
and then Tombstone. So, Matt, why don't you break it down on...
We'll talk about... I'll break it down, and I'm going to try not to break down.
Yeah, this is kind of a special episode. But we're going to...
I'll give a little bit. I don't mind talking about it.
Whatever.
I don't. My dad has recently been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So this is going to be a tribute episode to him, with just some of his favorite shit.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves is pretty good.
I grew up, one of his favorite movies. So that's kind of why I picked these things, stuff that I grew up with. So I'll start off with Dances with Wolves then. Directed by Kevin Costner, screenplay by Michael Blake, based on the novel Dances with Wolves by Michael Blake. Produced by Jim Wilson and Kevin Costner. Cinematography by Dean Semler, edited by Neil Travis. Music by John Barry. Starring Kevin Costner, Mary McDonnell, Graham Greene, and Rodney Grant. It was released November 9th, 1990. Made with a budget of $22 million, grossed $424.2 million.
Really? It did that well?
Yeah. Lots of Academy Award
Oh, yeah, I bet it did.
nominations and winners. Yeah, it won Best Picture that year. Kevin Costner won Best Director and was nominated for Best Actor.
Really?
I'm not sure who won.
I was going to say who won.
They also won Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. Speaking of the original score, so that was John Barry. I was watching this movie today, actually, and Amy has never seen it.
What?
She's never seen it, not even once. And she didn't watch it with me, but she heard the score, and she's like, I've heard that. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up when I was doing this, because I was like, John Barry, like, I know he's done other stuff. He did the score for, like, the bulk of the James Bond films.
Okay.
Like, the old, like, including the James Bond theme from Dr. No, the one that everybody knows,
the one that everybody
classic,
knows. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's why he sounds familiar and is so somewhat prolific, I would say.
Yeah. I have to admit, man, this is probably one of my favorite like Western themed movies.
Yeah.
I have actually seen this movie so many times. And, like, I didn't have to even do any research on it because I've literally probably watched it 30, 40 times over the course of my life.
Yeah.
And that might be a conservative estimate because it is so good. And
oh, actually, I forgot. Go ahead. You can keep talking.
I don't know. It's let's break it down. Kevin Costner starts out and he's wounded in battle.
Yeah.
Getting ready to lose a leg.
Yeah. Lieutenant John
J. Dunbar.
John J. Dunbar.
Yeah.
He was a Union lieutenant.
Yeah, lieutenant.
Yeah,
the lieutenant. Mm-hmm.
During the Civil War. Oh my God, I can't open this.
So the movie starts out. If you guys haven't seen it, please go see it. Spoiler alerts, we are going to go in depth on this.
Yeah, it came out in 1990.
Yeah, you've had time. But if you're like Amy and haven't seen it. and want to see
watch it first.
Yeah. So he starts out, he's wounded in battle, and he is on the verge of losing his leg. Actually, the doctor, it starts out in the hospital, and they're actually like sawing people's limbs off to save their lives and stuff.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
that's how they did it.
Yeah.
So he says, not today.
Right.
Right. And basically is not going to go out that way. I think that's like in his mind, right? He's like, I'm not going to go through that bullshit, sawing a leg off and then having, not being able to support a family or anything, because back then, losing a limb was close to a death sentence in a way. Like, how would you work and all this stuff, especially back then?
Yeah, you couldn't be a greeter at Walmart.
So he hops on a horse. It's not even his horse.
Yeah.
Right? Hops on a horse and tries to commit suicide by Confederacy. Right? I mean, in a nutshell, that's what he's trying to do.
So, so when he does that, when he puts his arms out,
Yeah.
that was completely improvised by Kevin Costner.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like the iconic moment, one of the most iconic moments
So,
of the
like,
movie.
not the scene, but just
him sticking his arms out as he's going down on horse.
That
Like,
image of that,
it's almost like it's a reverent time, like he's opened his arms out. Okay, God, take me. I'm here. Mm-hmm. Right as he's flying down the line on horseback. The Confederacy sees this, and Confederacy sees this and starts unloading on him. Mm-hmm. Misses. One, probably because they're the Confederacy, and two, musket being what they are.
Yeah.
But in trying to commit suicide, he rallies the Union troops to a rallying cry, and they end up breaking it was like a siege or something, or a stalemate. He broke that stalemate single-handedly in that one act.
Led him to victory.
Yeah.
Becomes a fucking hero.
Becomes a hero. And in doing so, the general, who's like, you're not going to lose that leg today, son. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you my surgeon. Right? And saves his leg, gives him the horse that he technically stole, and gives him the rank of lieutenant, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
I think they gave him a raise in rank and gave him a horse and gave him a new assignment. Yeah. And he could pick any assignment he wanted, right?
Yeah, he requested to be out on the Western frontier, which brings me to what I was fumbling with over here. I brought it's American Prairie Bourbon.
Ooh, the Prairie
yeah, by High West Distillery. Not a sponsor of the show,
right.
But
if you guys listen to this, we would love to promote your product.
I do. I love their products. So I'm an avid buyer. But I've got some tin mugs here too.
Oh, bringing it old school.
Oh, dude, we're living on the Western frontier today.
Next, you're gonna tell me they're from like 1800. They're like your great granddad's drinking cup.
There we go. Get a nice pour in there.
Thank you.
For you, sir.
God damn, that's like 10 fingers.
Hey, you know what? We're gonna need it for the rest of the of the show, So, hey,
cheers
to
fathers.
Yep. All right. Sir Knight.
Yeah. Ooh.
I have pissed my pants. And nobody can do anything about it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because why do you think... Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. He goes to his commanding officer, who's a fucking nut job.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is my assignment. I guess he's looking for transportation. He's trying to secure transportation or something out there. I don't know.
Yeah, he needs like the paperwork.
Oh, the paperwork. And this guy's a nut job. Okay, so he's like a ranking officer. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that guy committed suicide? They never really fully explained it.
Okay. In a realistic sense, any number of reasons. We obviously see that he's unstable. Yeah. Mentally unstable. And that could have come from any number of things. Isolation out on the frontier. Whatever it is. So that the act of him committing suicide, could very well just be a product of that.
Like, he knows he's losing his mind and he's going to go out on his terms before his instability takes over or something.
Or it already has.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, in his unstable mind, it was like, that's the thing to do.
But by him committing suicide, mm-hmm. almost leads you to believe that's what led to Dunbar's not I want to say exile, but
Yeah.
his time out there for so long.
And that's
right?
what I was going to say. So in a practical sense, it's hard to answer. There could be any number of things. As from a storytelling perspective, though,
that had to happen to explain the amount of time that he spent out there by himself.
Because he was the only tie between Dunbar and
his assignment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so him ultimately committing suicide severs that tie. And then he's out on his own.
Yeah, because he stayed. He's like, why do you want to go all the way out there? Mm-hmm. And he was like, I want to see the last untamed wilderness before it's gone. So he was even, acutely aware that white man was going to be coming and destroy all of this
and he
untamed.
Did. And that's, this movie's so good. It's very epic. Like the whole thing, and you know what I mean? And it just gets better as it goes along. But I think that might be one of my favorite scenes. When he's first out there and he's writing, he's narrating and
so he hops on the cart with Tibbins,
mm-hmm.
and
fucking Tibbins.
That guy, dude. So that whole scene right there where he hops on, and then you hear his commanding officer shoot himself,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of looks back and disregards it, and then it's kind of like that classic off into the sunset stereotypical shot.
He kind of disregards it. But in a way, you almost get this, and Kevin Costner's so good. I mean, he's probably one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
You can look in his face, and he almost has this, the way he turns and looks back is he has this sinking feeling
that he just did that, but
of that might have been
and he doesn't
my only tie to civilization,
and he doesn't care, kind of.
And that's what I love so much about his first nights out there. When he's alone, and because he loves it, he's soaking it in. He loves to be out in that, in that element. I think that might be why my dad likes this movie so much, because he's very much that person. Loves, the isolation,
the solidarity,
but
being one with nature.
Yeah, man.
I know what that one is.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love that part so much too. Yeah. In case you guys haven't figured it out, from other episodes, but you could definitely hear it now. We drink.
we do not excessively.
Not excessively, no. But
we have a couple.
We indulge a bit while we're
bit.
You'll hear us rustling around, opening some cans and bottles.
Snaps,
so So if you hear that, don't be alarmed.
Yeah. So then I guess you start to see what's the word I'm looking for? Not a precursor, but anyway, it's him and Tibbins, and he's explaining that he's probably the foulest human he's ever met, and he farts. Anyway, they come across a skeleton with an arrow, with an arrow in it, and I guess that's the kind of that's how you're out in the wild wilderness. Indians are afoot, and they will kill you.
Yeah.
Right.
He doesn't seem to care, though.
I don't think he does either. He does, it's part of it.
Yeah.
Right. He expects that. He knew. I mean, he had to have known.
Have you ever wondered, sometimes I go out camping or or floating down the river, and my favorite part, because a lot of times you go on a modern float trip, people bring a little boombox, everybody's drinking, being rowdy. At one point, every time that I go on a little float trip, there's always one point in the trip where I break away from everyone else. So maybe they'll stop, and set up a little, hey, we're going to stop over here, have a little snack, and, because that happens all the time. And then, maybe I'll be like, hey, I'll catch you guys in a little bit. I'm going to keep floating. Because at one point, I always have to have a moment where it's just me, and it's quiet, and it's serene. And what I like to do in those moments is I'll look up. I don't want to see any modern anything. I don't want to see the modern canoe that I'm in.
Yeah.
The flip-flops on my feet. You know what I mean? anything else from anybody that might be around with like a fucking fishing pole, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
I look up. I look up at the trees and the rocks and the hills and the fucking eagles, whatever's flying around. And I always think about, I'm like, what would it have been like? Like, could you imagine what it would have been like to have been born a native in this land? Like
I think about that all the time.
400, 500 years ago.
Have you ever been to Alley Springs?
Nope.
So we need to go there.
Yeah.
It's just south of here. It's like 3-hour drive. It is some of the most beautiful country I've ever seen in my entire life. And when you say that, that's the impression I got when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. It's untamed. It's still untamed. I mean, you can't go all that far without running into a building, like a house or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I do wonder about that. There's a scene in Hidalgo with Mortensen, Van Morten, is that his name? Viggo Mortensen, right?
Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah. And he talks about they're tracking through the desert, and he was like, he's talking to his horse, and he was like, I guess if that time in Missouri was like heaven, this must be hell. And he mentioned Missouri, right? Yeah. That's why I remember that quote.
Yeah.
Before all the civilization and before white man, dude, I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And I it's unfathomable. Yeah. I no. To answer your question, I can't imagine that.
Again, I think that's why this is one of my favorite parts of the film. When we're like 30 minutes in,
it's just him and Tibbins and nature.
Yeah. And I fucking love it, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
And honestly, if he wasn't with Tibbins, he'd be in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he kind of makes like, this is... I've seen, a sea of grass as far as the eye can see. And
yeah, the way he talks about it. The way he
describes it.
It's so poetic and you believe it.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about it. Have you read the book?
No.
The novel? I haven't either. I think I would love to.
Yeah, I would.
I love shit like
dude, if it's anything like the movie, it's probably 4,000 pages long. So anyway, they run across some remains of dead people with... Mm-hmm. Does he see the buffalo for the first time? Or no, he saw...
He wanted to. That was like one of his big things, right?
Yeah, he wanted...
If I'm not mistaken.
He didn't see him, but he saw the track of land. Mm-hmm. Is that when he saw that?
I think so. If I'm being 100% honest, it kind of runs together after.
Yeah, but anyway, he ends up at whatever camp he was assigned to.
Yeah,
and
there's nobody there.
Nobody there. It's completely deserted.
It's like, ain't nobody here. It's deserted. He's like, unload the shit.
He's like, why? Ain't nobody here, Lieutenant.
Yeah. I'm here. Doesn't he say that to him? He's like, I'm here. Unload.
Yeah. Unload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Tibbins is cussing him the whole time, And then he gets to work on getting the fort up to snuff to Union standards as best as he can.
Uh-huh.
And this is when he notices Two Socks, is it not?
Two Socks, yep. The wolf.
Yeah, the wolf.
And so now that we're with Two Socks, one of the things I love especially about this title and like his name that they give him,
yeah.
Dances with Wolves. So a lot of these native tribes, these names, sometimes can, often they're pretty symbolic, but can have like a literal meaning or even like a literal like origin. They call them Dances with Wolves.
Well, stands with fist.
Right. However, I love the symbolism of, I don't know if you've ever thought of it this way, but like they call them Dances with Wolves, and it's called, that's the name of the book and the film. There's definitely a symbolic nature of he's dancing with the wolves, as in he's the odd man out in this tribe. While he's trying to fit in with these people and assimilate to their ways. Almost as in like they're the wolves.
The Indian people are the wolves.
Yes.
Okay, I could flip that on its upside down though and say the white man are the wolves. and because he's
Yeah.
his true nature was, I mean, it was the essence of his being to go out there and to
Oh yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So this whole time maybe he's been dancing with the wolves.
So you could look at it, either way.
Either way. Yeah.
Where you could look at these Indian tribes as the wolves because they're majestic and they're living off the land, or the white man is the wolf
because they're cunning and they're sneaky and they're gonna fuck everything. And they're vicious and they're gonna come in and they're gonna steal your food and kill your babies.
Either way, Dunbar is dancing with wolves.
And it's also
metaphorically
he's kind of in limbo too there, because as he assimilates into the Indian culture, he's not really an Indian, but he's not really a white man either.
No, because he's a man without a.
He's kind of
man without a country.
Or culture. But so he sees two socks off in the distance, and two socks is at this point is like, this crazy ass white dude. I can't wait. I'm gonna get him. Right.
Yeah.
And then it switches to Tibbins leaving, and he actually gets killed by an unknown named Indian tribe. Right.
Do you think it was important to make Tibbins like you don't hate him, but he's still a somewhat unlikable person? Because
I think Tibbins is reflective of the average person of that time.
Yeah.
And I think you had to have a person like Tibbins to, I don't want to say put Kevin Costner, I don't want to say put Dunbar on a pedestal, but Dunbar was a man of stature, a man of, high regard. And I think that you need to have someone like Tibbins to kind of show the uneducated, crass, stereotypical person of the time.
Like
the average white person's like, why the fuck are you coming all the way out here? Are you trying to get killed by Indians?
Yeah. And I think he serves that purpose, and also to like
add a little bit of comedy.
Well,
I mean, there's some funny moments.
Comedy for sure, but also like I think you don't want to drum up too much sympathy for
the white man.
Yeah. Well, and for this man who's just like, oh shit, he just got fucking killed by Indians.
I didn't feel one bit. I didn't. Yeah, so that's a good point.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, they had to kill the first white guy they killed. You don't really feel all that bad about.
No, if you made him a real like respectable, honorable like character like Dunbar,
okay, good point.
You'd be like, man, they just fucked him up for no reason.
Those dirty Indians, man.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they still fucked him up for no reason. I mean, not really. They have reasons.
They have reasons.
But it. Like I said, it kind of serves that purpose of like, hey, you don't really feel too bad for him. He's kind of a shitter.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of a lot of those characters in, have you ever seen Almost Heroes?
No.
With Chris Farley and Matthew Perry. They're trying to beat Lewis and Clark to...
Okay, yes, I have seen that. When he said Chris Farley, I was like, wait a minute. That's going back.
Yeah. I think 90...
It has us in late 90s.
6? Yeah. Oh, good movie. We'll probably cover that one.
Yeah, we should cover that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, moving on. Life at the fort is difficult. He found out that his water supply has been poisoned. Dead elk or deer was found in it, so he's got to clean that up and then store all of his rations and supplies. And I think one of the first time he encounters a Indian at the fort, he knocks himself out. Does he not?
Yeah.
They're trying to steal his horse.
Is it when he runs through the...
and he runs into the door and he doesn't wake up until the morning. But luckily his... what was his... Cisco is the horse's name. Yeah. Cisco... I told you, man, I've seen this movie 40 times, dude. I know this movie front and back.
This is, we talked about why we're doing this, with it's one of my dad's favorites. So, as I said before, it was released November 9th, 1990.
I was 8.
I was born in 1990, so I very literally
grew up
watching this from the time of my birth, pretty much. Yeah.
I remember when my mom and my aunt rented the movie from Blockbuster and brought it home. Like, we have to see this, and that was the first time I saw it. Was on
popped it in the VCR.
It was on VCR.
Fingers crossed, the last person remembered to rewind it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that was a long movie. It's a long movie. It's 3 hours long, if not more, right?
Yeah,
It's long.
That was kind of like a running joke in the 90s of like Kevin Costner films.
Okay, I can see that. Because like Tin Cup and
Waterworld.
Also one of my all-time favorites.
What's the other one? The Postman.
Yeah, Postman. Yeah,
Postman. That's like it's a 3-day long movie.
Yeah. So the course comes back and he starts really kind of preparing for them to come back. They kind of don't, right? And then he's like, okay, I need to go out there, show them I'm not hostile. I need to find them and let them know that I'm okay, Yeah. And that is when he meets Stands with Fist.
A white woman.
A white woman who was raised with, are they Pawnee?
Lakota?
I think that might be it.
Yeah.
I think the Lakotas were always known to be one of the more peaceful.
Lakota and the Lakota and the Sioux.
Right? The Sioux were the bad ones, though, right?
They're the two big tribes, right, that we see in,
I think so.
Here.
But now, anyway, getting on to Stands with Fist. This is from the first time, and I forget her name, but she played the president's wife in Independence Day.
Mary McDonnell.
That's it.
Bill Pullman's wife.
Bill Pullman's wife. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I think it's the same person. I think. Anyway,
I'll have to look into that.
Was she committed suicide? She was trying to commit suicide, right? They don't make that really clear. Her wrists were slit.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think it had something to do with her husband dying.
Yeah, she was mourning.
She was mourning her? Yeah. Okay, so she's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to...
And he doesn't understand her at first, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of crazy. You walk up on this lady and she's like in the middle of fucking nowhere, in the middle of a sea of grass by a tree, singing, and she's profusely bleeding, right? Like she's... So it's hard to understand. And then she sees Kevin Costner and faints, which kind of pisses me off in a sense.
Yeah.
Ain't no Indian woman fainting.
Yeah.
Unless she's...
Yeah.
A lot of blood loss. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that contributes to it.
It could.
I think that's probably...
or maybe she stood up too fast and she was...
I kind of chalked it up to like she was losing blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're losing blood, like you're
okay. I'll give you that. So he scoops her up, takes her to her people. I mean, they're kind of brutal, right? They like drag her off the horse and they just drag her down the ground. And it's like, oh shit.
I mean, that's how a lot of things were done back then. Not even just because they're, tribes living on the frontier. I mean, we talked in the beginning about how like they were just hacking off limbs and shit. Like that's just medicine and science were primitive. At this point.
I mean,
did you know they had a language coach come in and teach Lakota?
That's cool.
Members? Yeah. Like that.
They went to extents to make it authentic. Yeah. Good. And isn't Kicking Bird? He's a well-known actor, and
was that? I'll pull it up here. Graham Greene.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or Rodney Grant. It's one of those two.
I think his last name is Green.
But they're both. They're both pretty well. Like they're both like in a lot of stuff, especially like in the 90s.
Yeah.
Those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's part of that tribe, I thought, right? And he kind of already knew the language, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was just they had a language coach come in and teach like the white actors and stuff like that. And some of the actors that were playing the tribesmen who like didn't know the language. Oh, it didn't record. Okay. Apparently some of the like people who were actually like native speakers of the language like saw the film and I guess found it funny to hear like the warriors talking like women
So
They said
they were able to tell that like they was like very feminine in their voice and the way they talked and everything.
Yeah, I think it was because it was not even so much. I don't know if it's because like the language coach was a female, or if it's more so like the way you teach a language is very, like phonetically, like it's definitely different than like the way people just like speak the language with each other. Like I took Spanish in high school. I don't know if you did or took.
I took German.
So, you probably know some phrases in German. I know a little bit of Spanish. Like if we were to, to speak those languages to people who
are native speakers,
they're gonna tell a difference.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, it's interesting that they were like, that warrior over there screaming about scalping people. He got a lot of sugar in his tank, man.
I mean, like to us, we hear it and we're just like, yeah, it sounds fucking good to me.
Yeah.
It's authentic. I don't fucking know what they're saying.
Right.
Thank God for subtitles.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I guess he gets back to his fort and he's wondering if he made an umbrella. Like he couldn't understand. He's still like processing what just happened. And Two Socks starts kind of getting a little closer. Still won't eat from his hand kind of thing, right? He's still kind of skittish.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... God, there's so much symbolism in this story. But between the way that he interacts with the wolf, the way he interacts with the tribe, the way the tribe interacts with him...
I think that the fact that he didn't get his gun the first time he saw that wolf and shot him...
Yeah.
It's testament to he's not the average white guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not the person who's going to be like, there's engines.
There's engines.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
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 No,
yeah.
he's very open to, hey, like, these are people too.
Right.
Now, was he thinking with the wrong head when he found Stands with Fists? If he wasn't immediately attracted to this white woman who was raised by Indians, would this story be the same? Like this is not a romance story in a traditional sense, but without that, are we telling the same story? I think not.
No, I don't think so, because I think it was their attractiveness is what led him to buckle down and like try to communicate with her.
Yeah, because I think even him not being the average, white man of the time and not being a product of his time, he's still going to look at that tribe a lot differently. I don't think he would actually come in and like assimilate to their culture. I think he would probably just be at his post and be like, I'm just going to leave them alone.
Or trade with them, or keep things professional.
Yes.
Like, I'd like to teach you, let you teach me kind of thing. But yeah, I don't think he would assimilate. I think you're right. Yeah. Well, it also shows too that they're not just willing to like sacrifice, that they have respect for other peoples as well by taking Stands with Fist in and raising her as their own. Yeah. Shows that they are in a sense, shows that they're peaceful people as well.
So also, apparently Kevin Costner is an honorary member of the Lakota Nation because of this film.
That's really cool, because I think he really did do them you look back, and any Indian movie was, first and foremost, the people in like the John Wayne movies, they weren't even Indian, they were Italian.
Yeah.
What a slap in the face to indigenous peoples, man. Like, we're not even going to hire a real Indian guy. Yep. We're going to hire a fucking Italian. No offense to Italians, but I mean, you know what I mean? Come on. I mean, it's kind of fucked up.
Have you ever read True Grit?
No, but I saw the movie.
The John Wayne? Or
no, the new one.
The Coen brothers?
Yeah.
So much better.
Oh, I've heard.
Dude, so much better.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting out of that generation that held those like John Wayne movies up to like standards that they don't belong.
deserve.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna knock him or anybody who made those films. Yeah, they're still
Let
great.
me be racist, partner. And cast this Italian for an engine.
No, it's I want to see more. Like I want to see more modern westerns. I think that's what we're missing in film. Honestly,
Man, have you seen Westworld?
I have not watched it yet.
Oh,
Now,
man.
I've seen the movie.
Okay, the old movie, like
yes,
in
the
the early
old movie
2000s?
with, Yul Brynner and
Or the old
James
movie?
Brolin. No, the old movie, like from
70-something?
78?
70s. I know it was in the 70s. So that's the one you're talking about? Because they
That's-
redid it,
I
and
have
it
seen
was
that
like
one.
the new movie was fucking horrible.
Really? I didn't even know that happened.
Yeah, there's and it doesn't even really. I don't know. There's like aliens or something involved in it.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Like,
It
and
didn't do all that
I
well.
love Michael Crichton.
yeah.
So, I don't know.
Man,
He was like 6'10".
Michael Crichton, 6'10".
Well, he's dead now, but he was
Oh, I didn't know he died.
he was like really fucking tall.
Really? So anyway,
Yeah,
you need to watch Westworld.
Yeah.
Because that is something we could dedicate a whole week's long episode just to Westworld and how awesome it is. Ed Harris, one of my favorite actors, is in it. He plays a fucking badass in the first episode or season, maybe the second. Anyway, but getting back to Dances with Wolves,
Yeah.
we are now back at the fort, and the Indians make contact with him.
Yeah.
Right? I guess this is where we're at in the story. He tries to be a gracious host and shows them coffee grinders and sugar. I think sugar was a big thing.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and he gradually earns their respect.
Yeah, over time.
Yeah,
Well, I think bringing Stands with Fist back to her people showed them he's not hostile.
yeah,
Like, we don't know why, and they got to be curious.
yeah,
They know the white man's coming. They've heard stories. Now we've got a single white guy, and they even explain that. Like, they even like he's a single white guy. I don't see a man. I see a man with power, or a man with medicine. I think is what the shaman says, right?
Yeah.
Like when they're discussing like what we should do with them, because half the village is like we should kill him. The other half is like, let's see what he wants first, then we'll kill him,
right,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And that's when Kicking Bird and God, what's the other guy? His nemesis, who ends up being his brother. What is his name?
God, I just watched this too.
I know, I forget the guy's name, but he's like, it stands with Fist and Kicking Bird, and
There's wind in his hair.
that's it.
Okay,
Wind in his hair.
Yeah. Because then we have like 10 Bears. I think was the.
Is that the kid?
No, that's the older.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
Wind in his hair.
Wind in his hair, yeah, that's him. So Wind in his hair is like, we should kill him. He's a fool. And 10 Bears and Kicking Bird are like, no, we should see what he wants. So they go out and they meet Dunbar, and he impresses them with a coffee grinder.
Yeah.
I think we should back up, because doesn't he see buffalo?
They do. There's like a whole buffalo hunt.
Yeah, but I'm talking prior to this.
Oh, maybe.
Because he's like, I saw buffalo, and he's like scooting around, and he's trying to like mimic a buffalo, and that's when he
yeah.
learns the term Tatanka.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
So you're right.
Okay, so they're like, Tatanka, yeah, I saw Tatanka, yeah, I saw buffalo.
Moving ahead a little bit, though. Speaking of buffalo, did you know Kevin Costner did all of his own, like, stunts, like his riding?
I think I'd heard that.
Yeah, during that buffalo hunt, like riding the horse bareback, shooting the gun, like when he's like not even holding it. Yeah, all of that.
We should
shit,
talk
like,
about
he did that.
technicalities, because technically it wasn't a buffalo.
Bison.
It had to have been. Right?
American prairie bison.
Right. Which is, in a sense, kind of sad.
Yeah.
That's a product of white man coming in and...
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the pictures of, like, buffalo skins and skulls and stuff, and they're just piled mountains high? Like, just...
Have I told you that I am freaked out by hoofed animals?
No, I didn't know that. Like, are you, like, a phobia?
In a sense, maybe, but it's not all of them. And one of, like, my biggest exception is bison.
You like bison or you don't?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you can go out to Lone Elk Park.
Yeah, dude. I think they're so fucking majestic. But like, goats are probably the worst. Dude, like goats,
It's funny that you bring that up.
Have you looked a goat in the eyes?
Yes, it's fucking creepy, dude.
No,
like the pupils are like rectangle and they're slant. Okay, Tori loves goats, and she just recently found Susan Park. She just recently found out about Susan Park and how you can go to Susan Park and you can feed the fucking goats. Okay.
Well, also,
she got not mad, but she was like, "How did you know about Susan Park?" And never told me. It's like, I haven't been to Susan Park in probably over 30 years. Okay. And she was like, "Did you know you could pet goats out there?" And I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, like everybody fucking.
Did you know that I don't fucking want to?
Well, it was, it's like Tora. It's been so long since I've been out there. Like, dude, I couldn't tell you. It's been over 30 years.
Amy loves them too.
Dude, they're fucking creepy.
They're the devil. So you agree with me that they're creepy?
Yeah. Like the ones that they got out there, I mean, they got the beard, and then they got like the fucking, it's the eyes.
Yeah. I don't ever look them in the eyes.
See, I can.
I can't. It creeps me out. I live probably like less than 5 minutes away from Grant's Farm.
Yeah, you sure do.
And if anybody's listening and they don't know what these places are that we're talking about, Grant's Farm is almost like a zoo.
It's a private zoo, sure.
Yeah, it's a private zoo.
Used to be owned by the Bush family.
Yeah, Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
But they have like a feeding area. You can go in, feed the goats, and pet them and shit.
And these goats are fucking animals. I mean, like not animals. They're like crackheads.
Animals.
Well, they are animals, but they're like crackheads.
They'll jump on your back.
They'll nibble at your like, hey, feed me, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. They'll nibble at your clothes.
I can't.
I mean, they will tackle kids. Like,
I will not go in there.
I can get that far, but they are kind of creepy.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I can give you that.
I don't like it. There's a goat at Grant's Farm that still has a piece of my soul. I accidentally looked it in the eye.
He looked it in the eye. Yeah.
But I love buffalo and I love bison.
Okay.
So yeah, I agree with you. It's a little sad. But yeah. But Costner did all his own stunts, and at least in that scene, that's what I read. Yeah. So I mean, what a fucking beast.
He is, dude.
What a man. You ever like stop and think about like I'm 33. How old are you?
I'm 41.
Yeah. Do you ever just think about how like there's like we're not real fucking men. Like, could you?
We're not real men until we ride on horseback through a herd of buffalo and shoot them with a fucking Winchester.
You ever feel that way? Not like not in a very serious sense, but like sometimes I'm like, man, we're so fucking inferior to our ancestors.
Oh, to our ancestors? Oh yeah, all the time.
Or even like our relatives. Like, I think about like my dad and like then his dad, and I'm like, God, they were fucking men.
See, I wouldn't say that about my dad. I mean, I love my dad and I respect him, but like, he was a hard worker, but I wouldn't. My dad wasn't going out and tearing down a mountain with a pickaxe. Or my dad wasn't into like woodworking. He was into cars and stuff, but like he wasn't the type to. Yeah, maybe in a sense he would do like car restoration and like he would fuck with metal.
That's what I mean. I think each generation it just like it gets
diminishes
worse.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess I don't know. Maybe my self-worth as far as manhood is, I don't know.
I'm comfortable.
I
don't mean that.
No, I mean, I do think about that. That's one of the reasons why I brought the Bronco. Like if shit goes south, I got a way to get out of the city. I can go to, like, so like, I think I could like survive in a post, like, but I don't know. But now you take my grandfather or my grandfather's grandfather.
Yeah,
there's no question.
That's what I'm saying. It's funny you're talking about like post-apocalyptic stuff and all that. Like I asked Amy once, I was like, do you ever think about how well you would fare in like, let's say a zombie apocalypse? And then I kind of turned the question on like, how do you think I would, do?
I think about that. I do.
And she immediately, I thought she was going to tear me down. I thought she was going to be like, oh, no, you're soft. Like, you're not fucking lasting. She flipped it on me. She was like, oh, you'd be Negan. Like, you would lead.
I don't see that. I don't think, not Negan. Rick.
Rick, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, just I'd like to think that you would be a Rick over because I choose you as a close friend,
right?
You know, like.
But at the same time,
I haven't seen like I know Negan is not like friends with the group now. Yeah. See, I had stopped watching before.
I'm a couple seasons behind. Too.
So okay, because I know that they're like hanging out with this guy, and I'm like, wait a minute, but Negan was a motherfucker when I saw him. So,
but we could get caught up on that and have a whole other discussion.
Oh, I would love, dude. I've been wanting to get back into it. We stopped right after they met the Tiger King or whatever.
Okay, yeah. That's when, maybe around Halloween.
Yeah,
we'll get into that. So that'll give us both an excuse to get back into it and pick it up. But back to Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, so I guess he slowly over time he starts assimilating into Lakota culture. He also progresses with his language skills with stands with fist. He goes on the hunt and saves one of the kids from getting trampled by a buffalo, and one of the most iconic scenes is he tries his first buffalo tongue.
Yeah.
Now apparently that is like a rite.
Yeah.
In Indian culture, like the Lakota tribe. So then you got to eat this raw tongue. It's like they're big. Okay, now you're one of us. You're part of your family, right?
That they're accepting.
They're like he's in like Flint, right?
It's such a good story. Like, there's so many layers to this. Like I said, there's so much symbolism and just the way that he interacts and the way everybody interacts with each other and the different cultures, the different even species with, it's so crazy, and it's such a phenomenal fucking story.
It's a really good story about the good side of humanity persevering through the times.
Yes.
Because he could have been such an asshole and been like, fuck these Indians, I'm gonna kill every one of them. And they could have been the same way. They could have been like, he's a white man, he's threatening our land. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. I think one of the things thinking about it now is they couldn't have been any more different. They couldn't have come from more opposite worlds. But at its essence, they're all human. Yeah. And I think that's something that lacks even in today's society. We look at people who are different classes or different standings in life, and I think about this. There's a guy at work, and they hired him through a tip agency, and he's the janitor at the dealership, right? Mm-hmm. But he takes pride in his work.
Yeah,
he shows up to work every day, and he does the best job that he can. And he's young. I mean, he's like in his probably early to mid 20s.
Yeah.
And it's just really refreshing to know that that's still there. That, like, I don't want to sound like an old geezer, but it's like older generations looking back like, these young kids don't know how good they got it.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy busts his ass.
Yeah.
And does an amazing job. And he's the fucking janitor.
Yeah.
It's like, dude. If I had like time and money, I would fucking put you through to I'd give you I would buy your education because you may not be able to afford. I'd put, I would put you in a position where you're not cleaning fucking toilets anymore, Yeah. And so it's like, it's just, the reason why I say that is it's like, well, he's a black guy, you know what I'm saying? So it's like and he's a black guy and he's a janitor, and it's like, not that anybody talks shit about it, but he's just really good at his job. He takes pride in it, and it reminds me of it just reminds me of he's just a really good guy, really great guy, and he doesn't first of all he doesn't let the fact that he's a fucking janitor and get in the way of what he does. I don't. Am I making any kind of sense?
Yeah. Work hard, have pride in what you do.
Yes. Being like, it's
that's the most concise way I could put what you're saying.
And in today's society, we are so fucking divided.
Yes.
Yeah. And we treat each other like shit.
Yeah.
Because we don't know them, or we don't, it's different
Don't understand.
And
people don't take the time to understand. And that's what this story is about.
So that brings me back around to this guy. I don't know what his story is.
Yeah.
Young African-American guy just trying to fucking get by. He's a janitor, but he takes pride in everything he fucking does. And I'm telling you, I hope that he realizes that he's got more fucking potential to do a lot more in life than just be a fucking janitor.
Yeah. I hope most people, unless that's what he wants to do.
Sure, and if he does, then no problem.
You know, and that's the thing too. It's like
this dude is selling himself short. If that's what he wants to do, I'm just saying he could do a lot more than be a fucking janitor. But he's good. He's even said, I just want to come in and just prove myself. You know, and it's like, dude, you're doing a fucking awesome job. Like our dealership has never been cleaner. You know, it's like, if you put this much pride into fucking cleaning toilets, dude, imagine what you could do.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so I think that we can look back on it and it's kind of reflective of the times where, at a time where two types of people should be at war together, we're finding happiness and celebration, and we're celebrating each other's differences, and while at the same time acknowledging that we're all the same. I guess that's the point that I'm getting at. Kind of, I don't know. This whiskey's good.
Yeah.
So, moving on, they start going to war with what do we call it? It wasn't the Cherokee, it was the
Lakota.
Sioux. No,
Lakota
the
and
Sioux.
the Sioux. Lakota and
The Sioux are the bad guys in this.
I think so.
I think that's
Pawnee
right.
Nation?
Or Pawnee, I forget. They may not make that clear.
There's different classifications. I know at the very end they talk about the Sioux.
Yes.
Because it was like 13 years later, the Sioux Nation was overrun by whatever.
White man or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dunbar goes to the chief and he's like, I want to get involved in this. And they're like, why? They don't make war against you. And he was like, well, you're my friend and so you're my family. I want to protect you. I have weapons that will make one man fight like 10. Which he's right. I mean, he's got a repeating rifle, which at the time, Winchester, lever action. It was probably, a 30-06 or something. Test of my knowledge. I forget how far back that goes. But, I mean, he can give out all these guns, and they've got probably 10, 15 shots in them, and one shot's going to drop. So, anyway, he helps them out and saves the day, repels the attack from the other Indian nation. Yeah. And that's when he really starts. He's like one of the family now. Like, he's in. Like, that's when they give him the name Dances with Wolves. Yeah. Is it not? I think it was after that.
I think so too.
And then
he's part of the
tribe. Yeah. He's part of the tribe now. And I guess they find out that white man has finally arrived at the fort. Mm-hmm. And he freaks out because he has a journal there and it's got all of his memoirs and all of his notes and illustrations and everything. And he feels like, okay, I got to get that. Because this is going to lead these horrible people to the people that I care about. Yeah. Goes back. They take him captive. They treat him like a fucking traitor. Yeah. Right? And like his people, his new family, the Lakota come and save him. Yeah. Right? And that's when Wind's in his hair, because the whole time Wind's in his hair is like, man, I don't like this dude. He's a white dude. After all that, he declares, "You are my brother," and I think that's one of probably the defining moment of the movie. Oh yeah, is when him and Stansworth Fist are trekking up the mountain, and he's down at the bottom, and he's yelling up at them, "You're my brother," and I mean, not so many words, but "You're my brother. I love you." And I will always be there for you. And it was just a very, I don't know. I think that is probably my favorite scene.
Oh yeah, well, because it plays into even more of the theme that we've been talking about. The understanding each other, respecting each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's where even this guy who's like, reluctant to all of this has finally come around. 'Cause every story like this, you got somebody who's reluctant. Like, I don't fucking know about this guy. Right. And then he's like, all right.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's my brother.
He's good peeps. Yeah. Yeah. I've met a lot of people in my life that are different. And, and I hate to bring up race again, but a lot of times they've been black friends of mine. Yeah.
Also, it's a separate culture.
Totally, like totally different upbringing and everything, and how they were raised and how I was raised, and
you learn a lot.
Yeah, you do, man. Like and like I used to drive for Uber, and I picked this guy up. Mm-hmm. I was in a bad part of town, man, and I knew I was in a bad part of town. And I pull up to the address, and these two guys get out of the car behind me, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm in a bad part of town. And I got two guys now. They give each other a hug. He hops in the car. When you drive for Uber, you don't know where they're going before you pick them up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I pick him up in North City, in a bad part of town, and then when I hit, I accepted the passenger, he's in my car, then it tells me, we're going to South County.
Yeah.
Start talking to the dude, and he's just, and I bring this up, it's not my first experience. I've had a lot of black friends growing up, so I have to make that qualifier, but it was the first time I met a stranger that was just like me.
Yeah.
He was like, man, I grew up in a fucked up neighborhood. I got kids. I had to get out of this neighborhood because I had to get my good education. Mm-hmm. I work for a living. I was visiting a cousin or a family member.
Yeah.
And him and I just started talking, and we had this connection. It's like, dude, you and I are the fucking same.
Right.
Like, we want the best for our family. We work hard. We can't help who we're related to. Because he was telling me about shit, fucked up shit with his family and brother and cousins and all this. And it's just like, I just wish people would take a second just to stop and not look at the color of a person's skin, but the character that lies within that person. And I think if we did that, I think this world would be a lot better off.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, wrapping it up. We're coming up on an hour on
I
this.
know. We still have two more topics.
So eventually, Kevin Costner stands with fists. They retreat out into the wilderness, and that's kind of like it's kind of like implied like happily ever after kind of thing, right?
Right.
The couple of things that we can take away from this movie is at the end of the day, we're all human, regardless of where we grow up or how we grow up.
Yeah.
And if we just take the time to accept our differences and celebrate our differences, and accept a person for their character. If everybody did that, there'd be no wars.
Right.
So, all around, probably like I said, my favorite at the beginning of this favorite Western. It's up there with my favorite Kevin Costner movie only because Waterworld is like that's my jam.
Right.
Like I have to, if I was going to pick a Kevin Costner movie, I think Waterworld would be mine.
We might do Waterworld.
We could totally do Waterworld. Yeah. I've just seen that movie just as many times as I have Dancing with Wolves.
We can add that to the list.
Yeah, let's do it. So, do you have anything that you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I think we covered.
Well, I got a question for you. So what with we're dedicating this episode to your dad.
Yeah.
What does this movie? How does this movie remind you of your dad, or where is the connection? It's one of his favorites.
It's one of his favorites. Again, I see a lot of him in this character of Dunbar.
Okay. Open-minded, willing to try new things, accepting of others,
and just like
steadfast in his resolve,
and just an all-around, like, I'd put Dunbar in one of the, like, if I were to like list out, some of the most like the top heroic characters in literature and film, you know what I mean? Like, he's up there, he's on the list, And, and that, to me, that's my dad, man. Like, he's this guy, he's honorable, he's respectful, and just.
I'll never forget the first time I rolled up to your house. Yeah. Here I am, I'm in my 30s.
Yeah.
Okay. At the time, cause you guys are 8 years younger than me. So you guys are in your 20s. Right. Yeah. And, Amy worked with Tori, and I knew you from the mall, and I roll up on the house, and they're like, "Are you here to see Matt?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, he's downstairs. What's going on? You need something to drink? We got food."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the first time I met him.
Oh yeah.
Russ, this one's for you, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna get you through this. We love you. You're the fucking man, and you make us feel like inferior men compared to your standing. Maybe not so much, but to an extent. I mean, I think all fathers do, right? Like,
Like how do you? Yeah.
I think sons are always living in their father's shadow to an extent. To an extent, right? Because that's what we have. That's our guide. That's like our bar.
Exactly.
Right? So Russ, hang in there. We love you to death, and you're gonna get through this. So,
hell yeah.
All right, and we'll see you on the next segment.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with. So I'm sure people know how these things work. Sometimes we'll record certain segments and maybe take a break in between. Sometimes like a week or so. I think it's closer to 2 weeks this time. When we recorded our first segment, I had mentioned that my dad had cancer, and this was a tribute to him. Since that time, he has passed.
Yeah, it was really quick.
It's very, very sudden. I know this could be jarring to anybody listening right now.
Yeah. Because we just went straight into the second segment. And to give them an idea of how long it's been since we've met and talked, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but nonetheless, I want to finish this. I think I need it.
Yeah.
I think, I just, I want to keep going with it. I want to finish what we started. So
again, this episode is dedicated to Russ Manion.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
He was, he was my hero. He never, he wasn't a huge drinker, but when he did, he was always a simple man. And when he did, his go-to was just a simple Jack and Coke. So we got those right here. We'll raise them and
cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
So, I guess let's get right into it. Yeah. Next part of the segment is Star Trek Next Generation.
So fucking excited, man! You can see me, I'm rubbing my hands.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you this: we have over, I think, every fucking episode that we've done, we bring up Star Wars. Because Star Wars, how can you not? It's such a huge part of pop culture, as we've said over and over and over again. But regardless of that, I don't know if you know this, I'm more of a Star Trek guy.
I think you know what? I think I am too. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
What I like about Star Trek is it's more plausible because it's set in the future versus as in a galaxy far, far away and a long time ago. Like this is more plausible.
So I always kind of put it as Star Wars is, yes, it's a sci-fi series. It's science fiction. But at the same time, it has a lot of fantasy aspects to it as well. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like Star Trek they like put a lot of effort into like the science part of science fiction to make it very like, there's no magical force or anything like that. This is all just advancements in technology.
And our understanding of astrophysics, physics, and all of that.
Yeah. And there's so much of that, the Star Trek in general, there's how many different series now, including like the animated Lower Decks. Have you watched any of that?
No.
It's the people that did Rick and Morty.
Okay. No, I haven't. I've seen it on like little clips on YouTube and stuff for it, but I've never like tuned in and watched it.
But we are talking about the Next Generation, TNG. It's the one I grew up watching with my dad, and that was why I chose this one.
Yeah.
Of course, it was created by Gene Roddenberry, who created the original.
And wasn't he
series.
also he wrote the series, right? Or wrote.
Yeah. Actually,
And then wasn't he like a technical advisor or something for the series, movies, and all of that? Wasn't he?
I believe so. I mean, he did pass. I forget when, so he wasn't there for all of it. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he did a lot. He was very hands on with this. The Next Generation aired for 7 seasons. It was 1987 to 1994. And it also had 4 movies.
Right.
It was Generations, First Contact, Nemesis, and I can't think of the other one right now.
It was the one with the Borg.
That was First Contact.
Where Picard. No.
Yeah, Locutus of Borg. You know, my best friend Matt's gonna hate me for not remembering. Yeah. Gosh. Well, I mean, it'll come to me, but it's one of those things. It spanned however many years. This one was special to me, like I said. Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, Sir Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner, LeVar Burton, Marina Sirtis, Michael Dorn, Gates McFadden. I mean,
right.
It goes on. Will Wheaton.
Who's
gone on to do a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
He was Colm Meaney, who you've probably seen in some other things. He was O'Brien. Irish actor, curly hair. Yeah, he's been in a bunch of other stuff. Whoopi Goldberg.
That's true. Yeah.
Guinan.
Yeah.
She was my favorite, actually. She was the bartender.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was talking to somebody about, like, actors, and where'd you see them for the first time, when you were a kid, and like where do you remember? Like, I think I was talking about, like, my first memory of, like, Bill Murray was in Space Jam.
Okay.
Because I was a kid, and I hadn't watched a whole lot of other stuff. But, like, Whoopi Goldberg, somebody said, like, she played that bit part in, like, Little Rascals.
Yeah.
She was one of the moms.
So that's interesting you bring up Bill Murray, because I remember the first time my interaction was with Bill Murray was on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I didn't watch a whole lot of that.
Yeah, but that was right around the time when he was on there. I'm like 4 or 5, so it would have been 86, 87, I think, is when he was on there.
Yeah,
or it was recent reruns of Saturday Night
probably.
Live or
yeah, maybe because like I remember like my earliest memories of like Saturday Night Live casts was like Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, and
it was either Saturday Night Live or Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I think Ghostbusters was around there too, but I just, for whatever reason, man, he stuck out in my mind in Space Jam.
Yeah.
And that was, with Whoopi Goldberg, like I said, people were saying like, oh, Sister Act and all these things, and I was like, no, man, like.
What was also really cool too was LeVar Burton.
Yes.
My first interaction with him was with Reading Rainbow.
Reading Rainbow, yeah.
Right, so it was kind of cool. It's like, wait, and it was kind of like, wait.
Yeah.
What?
So when I was a kid, this goes to show you how much I watch this. My mom used to have those, those like plastic headbands that women used to wear. It was like, it would just go over their head like this.
Yeah.
Like, and they'd just push their hair back.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I would take those, I would put them over my eyes.
Yes. They even had like the claw, claw in the middle of it. It was like a clip kind of thing. Yes. We did too.
And I would put them over my eyes, and I would pretend to be Geordie LaForge. He was my favorite when I was a kid. Definitely. And as I've grown up as an adult, I really like Riker.
Oh yeah, I think
he just
number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, you
he's number 1. Yeah,
number 1.
Number 1, yeah.
Have you seen those videos, the Riker maneuver, where he puts his leg over the back of the chair before he sits down?
No.
He does it. There's like somebody compiled a video of him doing it because he does it throughout the whole series, because the chairs kind of have like lower backs, and he's a taller guy. He's like 6'2" or something like that, and so like he would like walk up and put his leg over the back of it before he sat down. He just like looked like a fucking badass when he did it.
Yeah, I'll give you. I think I liked him too.
Yeah.
And then what's weird with him is he went on and he hosted like a thing on like, what was it, like creepy stories, places, or whatever.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. I forget the name of the show
I know
that
what
he
you're
was
talking
on.
about. As he got a little older, and he's done a lot. I mean, a lot of these people have stayed active in the Star Trek, like the newer series and stuff.
Yeah,
I know him for sure. Like Jonathan Frakes does. He plays Riker in the animated series Lower Decks, like I was just talking about. And do you remember Q? John Delancey was the actor. Q was like one of my favorites, man. He was only in like 8 episodes.
Describe him to me. It sounds familiar. I mean, you're going to be testing my knowledge on the series. I'm more familiar with the movies, but that name sounds.
Yeah, it was just he was like a program. Here, let me just turn this around. I'll show you. I don't want to knock anything over, but like. That was Q.
Yes.
Okay.
He was probably one of my favorites. I think he was a sinister, smart, cunning,
he was.
Evil bastard.
And he was even featured in the new Picard series.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of these guys, and I mean, you can't do a series as long as this without forming some kind of bond. But sometimes with that, you know, like other shows and stuff, you'll hear stories about people like, well, this person didn't really get along with so-and-so or you know, whatever. But, you know, I never read anything about, like, this cast just seemed to really get along. Like, the whole time.
Yeah, you never hear of any, especially nowadays with the internet being what it is, there's some kind of scandal would have come out.
No.
You know, but yeah.
No, they seem to be a tight-knit group. When LeVar Burton got married, Brent Spiner, who played Data, was his best man, which was just, like, that's so perfect. You know what I mean?
It really
because
is.
they're best friends on the show. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, and Michael Dorn were all ushers at the wedding. So,
That's cool.
You know, they're all involved.
You know, part of it is think about it though. You're an actor.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're part of one of the most popular TV shows at the time. Okay, and not only that, but it addressed the social issues of the time in the writings and stuff. You ever notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Like the way like different missions and stuff, and it was it was reflective of the times and so here you are. You're an actor, and actors usually tend to drift towards, you know, more social issues and stuff and causes.
Oh yeah.
So not only are you on a popular show, you're getting paid a lot of good money, but you're also making content reflective of the culture at the time and possibly even influencing children. Because I'll be honest with you, I was like, well, I'm 8 years older than you are. So when that came around, I was older, so I wasn't into like pretending to be Picard or number one, or you know what I mean? But I still really liked the series. It was still a really cool show.
Oh, dude, wait till we get to the third segment.
What I'm getting at is, you know, because of the way they wrote the show, you almost got like a little bit of, I don't know, education on civil rights and
so many
equality and just everything like that, you know.
Well, because like you said before, this is set in the future versus, you know, where like Star Wars is like long time in the past and far away from us, where it's like things are so different. You know, and you know, to your point, not TNG, but the original series had the first ever on-screen interracial kiss.
I think I knew that.
It was William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols who played Lieutenant Uhura.
Yes.
And that was a big fucking deal at the time, man.
It's nuts.
Yeah, you know, and you know, but it just kind of, again, like I said, you know, going back to that, it's set in the future, so it's like they imagined a future where it was like, man, we finally put all this shit aside.
But they keep running into civilizations and different,
of course,
different ways of life.
Yes,
and that was one of the things I like so much about it is because well, it also would sometimes give you even I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but it often gave you the wrong side's perspective.
Yeah,
to a point where you're like, I can understand how you feel that way, but you're forgetting that, you know, and like I can empathize with the other side, but you're neglecting that this is a shitty way of living, or you know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
Whatever
I think one or two of the movies dealt with issues like that.
Yes,
you know, in the same vein. And you know, speaking of, we were talking about LeVar Burton. So I don't know if you remember, like later in the series, so he always wore the visor, Geordie LaForge. You know, it was like it was a disability. It was something with his eyes, you know.
Yes.
And they do like.
I mean,
quote,
it was a disability. It was a disability.
Yeah.
But the visor gave him some.
Yeah.
Superhuman. Shit, right?
And the only reason I say that, and this kind of ties in with what you were saying about, you know, like, you know, social issues and things like that. So later on in the series, I think it was after one of the movies, after like Generations or something, he does get rid of the visor and he has like prosthetics, you know, or whatever. They were planning on doing that a lot earlier, like in like season 2 or something. But they realized Geordie LaForge had become a positive role model for the disabled community. You know, people with impairments like that.
Yeah.
That they were like, no, we have to keep the visor now, you know, like because he's like, you know, I mean, the dude is like the top fucking engineer, you know.
Yeah, he's and one of the smartest guys on the fucking ship.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I was just getting ready to say he represents, just because you're quote unquote disabled doesn't mean you're disabled.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, like.
And you know, another thing that I didn't really think of until you just said, you know, he really was like one of the smartest fucking people on the entire ship.
Oh, he totally was.
Yeah, and I never really thought about this, but thinking back, you know, like I said, this started in '84. Now, that we try not to think of that recent of, you know, our history being this way, but that was a time where him being African American, being a minority, and having that top ranked position probably upset some people. But again, this is a show that was like, no, we're covering like social issues and we're fucking crushing them. You know, because why wouldn't he be? You know,
exactly.
It's all about his abilities,
right?
You know, and that.
Well,
and, that was,
and then, and here's another thing I have to say about that. You know, if you've got a problem with the dude from fucking Reading Rainbow being one of the smartest dudes on the ship, you got a fucking problem. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, for sure.
And I, dude, going back to Reading Rainbow, what was so awesome about being a white child is having that black, and it wasn't, you know, we get into, we have to talk about race because we're talking about Star Trek and how they did that, they dealt with it.
Oh, so much, yeah.
There's always a stereotypical of the black woman being the comforting, like nurturer, right? And it's funny because I was talking this with a friend a while back ago.
Yeah,
there is nothing more comforting than, you know, an older black woman saying, "Hey, baby, don't worry about it." You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, you know, it's gonna be all right, child. You know, the way that their speech pattern. You know, so I do find that very comforting. But then you have Reading Rainbow, and you have a black man.
Yeah.
And, you know, and here I am, 5, 6, 7 years old. Never looked at LeVar Burton as a black man.
Yeah.
In the, you know what I'm saying? In the sense, I just saw him as any other person. It wasn't like, you know,
of course.
So having that experience as a young child, you know, going to a public school, I think had a little, I don't know, looking back on it now, I think about it, maybe it had some kind of, impact on me, you know, being,
I'm sure it did.
Happy, you know, and I think about all of the racist bullshit that goes on. A lot of it's in like rural areas, you know, like there aren't any black people around there or people of different ethnicities and stuff. And it's almost like,
just a lack of exposure.
Lack of exposure to it, and they don't know any better. You know, like I've got quite a few friends that I haven't seen in years since high school, but I could pick up right where we left off. I mean, they were just, you know, like awesome people in I don't know, man. I think.
Well, I mean, you know, you talk about race, nationalism, things like that. I mean, the local bar that we go to is owned and operated by a Polish man.
Costa. Hey, Costa. Oh, we gotta get you liking our we need to do something. We gotta help that guy out, man.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
We need to like
get it sponsorship.
You know, we should do something, because that is like, if he, God, I know he doesn't have the money, but if he could find an investor or something like that to put some money into that place and get it like really nice, dude, that's a prime I mean, you're in
Well,
between
they've done a lot with it.
They have.
They've done.
Yeah.
But you know, to your point, you know, I don't ever think. I think we were in there one night and some guy said something about, you know, he couldn't understand what he was saying. He was like, "Well, he's a foreigner," and like, I'm not a fighter, but I wanted to take that guy outside. And just, you know, I'm like,
fuck yeah.
I'm like, no, he's not. He's a fucking man. He's a business owner. He's one of the coolest people I know.
I'm pretty sure he's an American citizen.
Yeah. So fuck you. Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, to that point, you know, you're talking about the old wise black woman, or, you know, they kind of did that on TNG with Whoopi Goldberg, Guinan.
Yeah.
Because now the ship did have a counselor, and Deanna Troi. God, I was in love with her.
I think some people have it's stereotypical.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if it is a positive.
Yeah.
Stereotypical.
Oh yeah.
You know,
there's definitely positive stereotypes. But she was a bartender, which is like an unlicensed therapist.
And I was gonna say she was like a guidance
she was,
counselor.
Yeah, she was part of the race of listeners.
Right.
You know, so that it just kind of like all fell naturally on her, because they did have the ship's counselor, like I said, was Deanna Troi,
right.
which was William Riker's. I know, dude. I know. We'll talk about an awakening as a child. It was like her and Kimberly the Pink Ranger, the Power Ranger. Like, you know,
was it Dr. Troy?
Dr. Crusher.
Beverly
Crusher. Gates McFadden.
Man.
Yeah, the redhead.
Yeah, I think I had more crush on her, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, and then so that was Will Wheaton's his character's mom, because he was
right.
Wesley Crusher.
Yeah.
But you know, and that's another thing, you know, like you know, you go on to which God, I'm telling you, dude, my friend Matt, we should have brought Matt with us for this
one.
You
know, next season, I think what we should do is we should plan out like the season's episodes and have guest speakers.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because for this one, I think it was Voyager or Enterprise. Kate Mulgrew was the captain, Captain Janeway.
Yes.
But even prior to that, I mean, they had these strong female...
That's Voyager, I think.
That's Voyager.
I think
that sounds right, because I think Scott Bakula was Enterprise, right?
I think so, yes. Yeah. That came later. And then, because I remember her XO being the guy with the tattoo on the face, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, but, you know, even prior to that, like with this one, we were talking about Deanna Troi and Dr. Beverly Crusher and, you know, characters like that, even Guinan. These are strong female characters, and they're so important to the story. They're so present, you know, and it's one of those things, like, again, you know, this was late 80s, early 90s. You didn't see that as much. It's kind of sad, but we didn't. And Star Trek broke a lot of boundaries, man.
Yeah, even though I found like Dr. Crusher and Lyanna Troi like attractive, I mean, I was probably going right around getting ready to be interested in girls, and never looked at them in like a sexual way either. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they were so. They weren't portrayed, even though they were very attractive women, they weren't portrayed in a very sexual manner or anything like that.
No,
at any point,
and that almost makes them more appealing and more attractive in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
Because they're just capable people that also happen to be attractive to us as men.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, like, I love that shit. Like, I hate like the damsel in distress
or the ditzy blonde.
Yeah, like, I hate that shit.
Yeah, me too.
Like, the characters I've always like really loved, you know, and, you know, kind of had that attraction and like the crush on and stuff were always
the attraction's there, but that's not what draws you to them.
No, absolutely not.
It's like their intelligence or their wittiness or their character or you know, it helps. They're good.
Yeah.
We're men, we can't say that it doesn't. We would be lying.
Of course.
But that's not at the forefront of what draws you to them.
Well, like, I've always loved Liv Tyler.
Yeah.
But like to see her as Arwen in Lord of the Rings, and she's such a badass, and you're just like, God damn. And it's not, you know, it's like she doesn't have to show any skin or anything crazy like that. You're just like, you just see her on her horse, like just being a badass, like elf, and you're like, fuck yeah, dude. There's a Coke in there if you want it. All right. But you can have whatever.
So let's get down. You want to talk about the movies for a little bit? Because this is where I'm a little more well versed in.
Yeah.
My favorite, I think, is First Contact.
That's
because the one where they go back in time, just like a couple thousand years or something.
Yeah,
it's nothing,
or
a couple hundred years, probably. Right?
First Contact Day.
Yeah.
April.
Has it already passed?
Yeah, April 6th, I believe.
It was like 2000 something, right?
Well, so the day has passed this year for us, but we're not there yet. It's 2065, I believe.
Oh, is it that? Okay, is it that far?
So we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
It is April 5th. Trying to find the year. April 5th, 2063.
2063.
That will be First Contact Day. Wouldn't it be crazy if it really was?
Man, that would be some.
Be nuts.
You know what? You would have to beg the question: were the aliens watching our fucking broadcast all this time to like know that it was on that exact date?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said with the whole Star Wars thing. If like they came down there like we want to speak to the one you call Solo. If they were like, where is your Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Enterprise?
Yes. We wanted to speak to the one called Picard.
It'd be nuts. That is hands down my favorite Star Trek anything. First Contact, that movie. That's the one, like you said, with the Borg.
Yeah. So that's what happens. They're chasing the Borg, or they're fighting the Borg, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting close to Earth.
Yeah.
The Borg is. They're gonna assimilate Earth.
Yeah.
And something happens. They create a
it's like a wormhole.
Like some kind of time warp thing. I forget the reason why. Was it to like evade them?
I think it was. Yeah.
I think it was because they knew that they were gonna get fucked up or something.
Yeah. So the beauty of these movies is like there's not a whole lot of setup because they're based off of characters off of a series.
And
if you're
prior movies too, especially in this case.
Yeah. So like if you're interested in getting into it and watching it, you probably already know a little bit about it. So you don't have to set up these characters and their relationships and all these things. They have a little bit of that, but it's like you could just get right into the story. It jumps right in, and it's so great.
Because in First Contact, he's already been assimilated by the Borg
in the past.
In the past,
yes.
And now, was that in the series or was that in the other movie?
It was in the series.
It was in the series.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of those things.
So you already knew.
Yeah.
So he had a really good knowledge of the Borg and how to get by and defeat them.
I am Locutus of Borg.
Yeah. Okay. But going back when the series, it is kind of genius. You almost wish that they would do that again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They do it every once in a while, I think.
Well, another example is, and it wasn't a great movie, but it was the Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, with the first Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
If you don't know Batman, like, which you should, but it's like if you don't know Batman or his backstory, they don't give you any of that in that movie. They jump right in to like, he's Batman. You've heard his fucking story.
You know his story.
You know his story. You know his origins. You know what I mean. And it was one of those things that it's kind of like if you're new to all this shit, like all the superhero stuff and all that, like don't start with that movie. If you don't know anything about Batman, they're not gonna tell you.
Definitely don't start with First Contact. That's all you. If you don't know anything about Star Trek.
In a way, yes. But also at the same time, First Contact's a really good starting point for some people if you already know a little information about Star Trek. And you're like, I kind of know a little bit about it. I want to get in.
Why not just start with the first movie, though? What was the first movie?
Like from the original series?
Yeah.
Or the first...
TNG. So
the first TNG movie was Generations. I think that was my...
Okay, so let's walk me through that because I get these confused sometimes. I've seen all of them, but I get them.
Yeah, so Generations had actually characters from both the original series and TNG. So Captain Kirk and Captain Picard are actually working together. Malcolm McDowell was the antagonist. It also centered a lot around Guinan and her backstory of Whoopi Goldberg's character.
Yeah.
Of how, her and the rest of I forget the name of their race, but it was the race of listeners, how they kind of were separated from, like, scattered around the universe or galaxy or whatever it was. I think that one, he never said it, but I think that was my dad's favorite of the movies, Generations. Yeah, I remember watching that one a lot as a kid.
I know I've seen it, but I don't think I've seen it as much as I have seen
First Contact. Yeah. Well, First Contact, I mean, like I said, that's...
I mean, what's crazy to think about that is that was the sequel to the first TNG movie, and usually sequels tank.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well it did, but that is the one that stands out the most to me. But I get them so confused sometimes, man.
Insurrection was I knew it was going to come to me. Insurrection was the other. That was the fourth. So in order, it was Star Trek Generations, Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Insurrection, and then Star Trek Nemesis.
Okay.
Nemesis probably has the saddest ending of any Star Trek. Like, if you haven't watched these movies and, like, you're kind of into Star Trek, but you haven't gotten into, like, I mean, it's been out forever, but spoiler alert, Nemesis was the one where they find the other Data.
I think I remember that.
And then
I know I've seen them all, but...
And Data, the original Data, ends up sacrificing himself.
Okay, yeah.
And, that was the one. So it opens on William Riker and Deanna Troy's wedding.
Okay.
And Data sings Blue Skies. Never saw the sun shining so bright. And that is, it kind of is one of those, like, the Data copy. They tried to download data into him. And, what it didn't really work at first is what they thought. And then at the end, Picard's walking away and the Data copy's sitting there. And he says, he starts singing, never saw the sun shining so bright. And he was like, Picard was like, okay, I think Data's coming back. Yeah, so but that whole, like, just the scene of, like, watching Data, and I'm like, oh my god, like, I grew up watching this character for years and years, and then you're just, like, watching, you're like, he really just fucking did that.
It's really because in that sense, it's, you get to see him develop.
Oh, so much.
So close to being he wanted to be human so much. Yep. And you got to see him develop, and it almost redefined what it means to be human.
Yeah.
Is human an organic thing?
Right.
Being, I mean, in its essence, it is.
Right.
I mean, you can still make the scientific argument that he's just... I don't know, man. We're getting into a strange world with this AI stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it's able to grow, like this was on a Joe Rogan podcast. I talked about it, but
yeah,
AI learned to talk in a language that it was not meant to do. Like it like learned. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a name for it and all that.
Yeah. They're learning.
Like AI. There again. AI is just like the internet. It brings the worst and but I think we're gonna see the best and the worst out of humanity on a whole other scale, right? Than what we've.
Isn't that crazy though? That we're talking 20, 25 years ago.
They had artificial intelligence.
Up to 30, 35.
Well, that's Gene Roddenberry and his.
Yeah, but like showing that duality of, like you said, the whole. Like, we see the best and the worst. Like, even just in the Next Generation series, we saw the best and the worst. Data was probably the best of that artificial intelligence. We saw the worst. We saw a lot of that, come out and, like, try to, a lot of those data-centric episodes were about those, those, other organisms out there.
Did you ever watch that, and now I can draw on a blank, and it was Seth MacFarlane's.
Oh, the Orville. Yeah, no, I didn't, but I heard it was really good.
Oh my god, it reminded me of TNG.
Yeah,
in the styling and the cinematography, but it was like it was updated. It had that feel of TNG to it. You really need to check it out, man.
That I've heard that not only is it funny,
it's fucking hilarious.
But like you said, they were. I forget who was telling me about it, but I had heard, like, it's funny, but at the same time, it's nostalgic. The production value like he put a lot, like they put a lot of effort into that. It wasn't just like, let's just make a goofy spoof. It was like, we want to make a legit series that's also funny.
That was also funny. And
did you ever see Galaxy Quest?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's another one, man. So we're talking about, and really, this is a perfect timing to be talking about it. It's like the impact of the Star Trek, how it has on pop culture and sci-fi movies in general. Yeah. So we've just named another series spinoff of it, and then Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest is probably one of my favorite, like, what is it, parody movies I've ever.
I would go so far as to say, and people are going to fucking crucify me for this, I like Galaxy Quest. It's probably more because I'm more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. I like Galaxy Quest more than I like Spaceballs. The silence.
Okay, so are we comparing? Okay, but you're also more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy.
Yes. But I mean, just as a movie, and I'm
going to disagree.
Of course,
but I'm a little older.
I would expect most people to disagree.
Like
with
John Candy playing Snarf.
Now, John Candy,
Rick Moranis playing the miniature fucking.
I'll give you that.
That's what I grew up when Galaxy Quest came out there. Again, I was like, I don't know, probably 16, 17, 18. I think I'd have to go back and check. Yeah. But I was a little older.
Yeah, of course. So how do I put this? I will say that Spaceballs, hands down, 1000% is a more iconic movie.
Yeah, but so is Blazing Saddles, which was also directed by Mel Brooks.
Anything Mel Brooks, I'm going to give you.
It's like, right?
So iconic.
Yeah.
Spaceballs, those characters, those actors, I give you all that. I think for me, it's like I said, it's just a personal thing. Again, I think growing up, like I always liked Star Wars. But Star Trek, I mean, my love
Star Trek just felt more real.
My love of movies and TV shows, and that's why we're doing this tribute episode, that all came from my dad.
Yeah.
Growing up, watching this stuff with him, and Star Trek was like, that was one of our things, man. So that was special to me. And so I think Galaxy Quest just being more on that Star Trek side versus Star Wars. And then, like, some of my favorite actors who at the time I don't even think I knew much about, but like growing up.
Well, I did not know Tim Allen. I mean, from Home Improvement. Of course. So that was a big thing for me. And then, not Jeremy Irons. Is it Jeremy Irons?
No, it's Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman,
yeah.
Playing the bad guy in fucking Die Hard. Yeah.
Hans Gruber.
Seeing him in that role was different.
Well, I think Tim Allen was a big thing. Like, again, so
Sigourney Weaver from being from fucking Alien.
Yeah. Well, at the time, so again, I think like you said, you're a little older. The age difference probably makes a,
Yeah, it had. Yeah, I mean,
like I remember when I was a kid watching like the Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Yeah.
But then also my dad was in construction.
Okay.
He flipped houses. He was a private contractor. Yeah. One of his favorite shows was Home Improvement.
Because he could relate.
Yeah.
Especially to Toolman Taylor.
Yeah, he used to do the, he didn't do it a lot as I got older, but when I was a kid, he would do the grunts and,
Yeah, sure.
So seeing Tim Allen in that. And then like some guys that like, Sam Rockwell's in that fucking movie. And at the time, I didn't even know who Sam Rockwell was. But then growing up and seeing other movies with him in it, I was like,
you're fucking right. I forgot about that.
He quickly became one of my favorite actors.
He is one of my,
but you got to look at like Tony Shalhoub is in that movie.
Yeah. So I was getting ready to talk about him.
Yeah.
I was like,
there's so many good actors.
At the time, was he on The Monk?
Was that? I think.
Or was that after? I think it was during, man.
I think so. I think Monk is older.
Monk. It was Monk.
In my mind, Monk seems more recent than I think it actually is in reality. Because it was like late 90s, early 2000s, right?
I think so. God, I didn't watch it.
I know. See, my mother-in-law watched it for a while, so I'd have to ask her. But like, but I think it was around the same time of Monk. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I mean, I mean, there was so much talent.
All-star cast, dude.
So much talent in that.
Wasn't Seth Green in it? not Seth Green, one of Seth Green's boys. I forget the guy's name. The Trekkie that they contact to get the schematics for how to defeat the engine, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh gosh, I kind of forgot all about that. That whole like
That's I think that's my favorite scene in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah,
because they reach out to the Trekkies.
Oh, it was Justin Long.
Yes,
Justin Long, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, he's great. Like really.
Was he in Waiting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been in so much. I think comedically he's one of the most underrated actors out there.
He's got that goofball.
He's a good character actor. Have you ever seen because he does a lot of Kevin Smith movies now.
Okay.
He was in. Did you ever see Zach and Miri make a porno?
Once, I think.
He was the guy that they met at their high school reunion. He was there with somebody else, and he was a gay porn star. But his like, I don't know, just to his like.
Do you have a picture of him?
Justin Long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I know who it is. Because if he was in Waiting.
Yeah, he was in Waiting.
He was the guy like the main character. Yes.
He was
that's who I'm thinking
like
of.
so. Why am I blanking on?
God,
Ryan Reynolds was like the main guy in Waiting, and then he was like the best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess Ryan Reynolds was the main.
Justin Long was the one that. David Koechner was the manager, and he offered him the assistant manager position. And he was such a fucking like David Koechner's so funny, and he was such a dork. And he's like, "Why don't we hang out more?"
Yeah, dude. So my big real exposure to David, what's his last name?
David Koechner.
Koechner.
Yeah.
Okay, was in Out Cold. You ever see Out Cold?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was the guy. He
was like the hillbilly guy, and then the guy got it. And I think, is that where I saw him? Did I see John Long in that or no?
No. So Out Cold was Jason London.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So Jason London and Jeremy London are brothers.
Okay.
Jeremy London was in Mallrats. Jason London was in Out Cold and Dazed and Confused.
Okay, so the scene that I'm thinking of,
Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah,
getting his dick stuck in the hot tub.
Yes, and he was loving on it all strong.
Oh, he was great.
That was my big first. I was like, I had seen him in like different like roles, like little small funny ass roles prior to that. But that's when I first fell in love with him. And I'm going to tie it back to another previous episode. We talked about Krampus briefly in one of our episodes. He's in Krampus too. One of my favorite.
He was briefly on SNL as
he was
supporting cast.
Okay, so that's
he did a lot of stuff with Will Ferrell, and now he's done a lot of Will Ferrell movies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because he was Champ Kine in the Anchorman movies.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
So anyway, getting back. So should we go back to Galaxy Quest or should we go back to TNG at this point?
I mean, it's one of those things. Again, this is what happened when we talked about Star Wars.
Yeah, we knew this is going.
You branch out. You start talking. Well, this inspired this, and that's why these series and films and everything are so
impactful.
Yes. Right? Yeah, because they're just widespread across pop culture. I mean, even so, we talked about Spaceballs. There's even some Star Trek stuff in Spaceballs. Beam me up, Snotty. Yeah.
Snotty. Yeah.
Snotty beamed me last night twice. It was great. And he was just trying to beam to the other room.
Yeah, that's all it was. Yeah,
he was like, never mind, I'll just walk.
Well, and then I guess, I mean, we're covering TNG, but in general, Star Trek has spawned so many just offshoots and storylines and in general, I'm sorry, but I think my favorite Scotty is Sean Penn. Is that his name?
No, Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg. That's who I'm thinking.
He was great. He's
my favorite Scotty.
Honestly, the casting of the new Star Trek movies, those like with Chris Pine, was really good.
It really was good.
When you look at it, you're like, wow, they really.
And honestly, so I wasn't gonna bring it up, but the first movie
Yeah.
with them
Yeah.
is probably up there with my.
Oh, yeah.
It's a top 2
It's
of
very
my favorite Star Trek movies of
Very
all
good.
time.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of it is the casting.
Yeah. Chris Pine was a good Kirk.
Yeah.
Carl Urban as Bones
Yes.
was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
You know, there were, just some of those,
Even Uhura.
Zoe Saldana. Oh.
Even her as Uhura is really good. You know.
So you know what was funny about that? Have you ever seen the movie Terminal, or The Terminal, with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
He's the foreign refugee,
yes, yeah, and she plays like the security officer.
Yes, and Diego Luna was like
in love with her, right?
Yeah, he was like a baggage guy. He was in love with her, and Tom Hanks was,
oh man, that's such a good movie.
He was kind of playing the telephone game, going back and forth, talking to them, and she was a Trekkie in that movie, because he goes
Really?
he goes, ask her what she likes to do in her spare time, and he said she goes to conventions, and he goes, what kind of conventions? And then he was like, he said something, he was like, oh, she's a Trekkie, and he got all excited about,
I never picked up on that. Yeah. What a cool little detail.
And then they have their wedding at the end in the airport, and I want to say there's something Star Trek involved.
I never picked up on that.
Yeah.
I wonder if she was probably in early, because that I'd have to figure out when Terminal and
the Terminal, that was like one of the first things I ever saw her in. But she's got to be like a sci-fi and fantasy fan, because she's been in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Was Terminal before I was going to say was Terminal before Avatar?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, she's got to be a fan. Like, you don't do all that stuff without being a fan of that genre.
And do it well.
Yeah. Which she does. And Diego Luna, to that point, his character in the Terminal was a Trekkie, but he's in the one of the newer Star Wars movies.
Is it?
I think he was in Rogue One.
I'd have to.
I think he's like
I may have seen that one.
It was a good movie. But I'm pretty sure, I know he was in something Star Trek, and I think it was Rogue One. Or Star Wars, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want to talk about TNG is they touch on, even in the series and even in especially this, the reason why I bring it up is it's in First Contact, and Picard is talking to the black lady, who's one of my favorite characters in that whole movie. Because she doubts everything, and she represents like the average person, like being wrapped up. I forget her name.
She was Zephram Cochrane's,
it's like right hand person,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is explaining society, like their current society, to them, and one of the things is like they're beyond like economics, in a sense that, like, okay, so capitalism, like, I pay you for a service or whatever. Like they have evolved past the standard, what we would consider like the basis of like everyday life, right? Because one of the things they have is like food. Mm-hmm. If I'm hungry, all I got to do is go, I want a steak in their, meat production machine, and it pops out a fucking baked potato. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like this idea of I provide a service in return for compensation is no longer there in their society. Everybody works together towards the betterment of society, right? Like it's not tit for tat.
Right. And
that is one of the most awesome things I hope in 40 years, because that's when that movie takes place. Yeah. That we could get to that point to where
we're heading that way, at least.
We're no longer to the point, what's in it for me? Like working at a job. Yeah. The only reason why I work 40 hours a week at the job that I do is because I am compensated for it.
Yeah, exactly.
If I didn't have to worry about like paying bills or supporting myself, like if that was just like taken care of, I'd be spending my days being creative and creating art and trying to make the world a better place or showing the world my perspective of the world or whatever it is, you know?
And that's the thing is, Star Trek deals with a lot of, there's adversity on other planets and other galaxies and things like that. And there's, a lot of issues. But as far as Earth, they imagined a very utopian society. Because it was, like you said, nobody's working for just to be compensated anymore. It's not about that.
It's all towards a greater good. Like homelessness doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And
and that's why they had all these like advancements in technology and medicine and all these things, because people were just like, you weren't spending your time trying to make money. You were spending your time trying to, what can we do to make things better for everyone?
For everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
And tying back into your dad.
Yeah.
You can't imagine a better show to sit and watch with your up and coming son.
Yeah.
Impressionable child, like
yeah.
I only met your dad one time.
Yeah.
But the first time I met him, he reminded me of my mom in the sense that old hippie.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. That was him, man.
That's how my mom was. And my mom was inclusive to anybody and didn't care. As long as you were a good person, she didn't care.
Yeah, and whether he thought that deep about Star Trek or if he just thought it was a cool show.
I mean, it wasn't like sitting there watching Roadhouse, a series on Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze ripping people's throats out, at the time,
Yeah. There was some of the I did grow up watching like The Legend of Hercules and Xena, Warrior Princess.
Again, I was a little older for Xena. I didn't get into Xena Warrior.
Anything fantasy, sci-fi like that. He was definitely there for that. You were talking about the actress that was kind of like the skeptic. She's been in tons of stuff.
I was gonna say I've seen her in a lot of stuff.
The one thing other than that I always think of with her is Scrooged.
Yes. Okay.
With Bill Murray.
With Bill Murray. Yeah, that's right.
She's essentially like the Bob Cratchit type character.
She's the Bob Cratchit who has the sick child. Yep, that's right. Okay, I knew I had seen her. Which you can't help but relate, seeing it because that Scrooge came out before First Contact did.
Yeah, it was 88.
Yeah. So I guess
it's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I can't wait till we do some Christmas episodes. Honestly,
yeah,
because I love Christmas and I love Christmas movies.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm looking forward to that too. Because I think as I've gotten older, Christmas has lost its magic, and maybe doing this and talking about, I don't know. One of the lessons I've learned since we've been starting to do this podcast is it's triggered like memories and stuff that I have not thought about since I was a young child.
Oh, yeah.
Or how I felt in the moment of watching a certain movie or a certain moment or whatever. So I'm kind of looking forward to our Christmas episodes as well because I think it's going to trigger that magical, because there's just so many.
I'm glad you said that because that is what draws me to the things that we talk about here. The movies, the TV, the video games,
the memories,
the sports, whatever it is that we cover here. That's what it is. That's why I'm so into those things. That's why I'm so into pop culture.
Yeah.
It is that,
for me, being able to sit here and talk about this kind of stuff has brought to my attention. It's part of who I am, and and sitting here to talking about it and thinking about it, I'm starting to realize that we grew up watching this stuff, and like we talk about like the Roseanne episode, and how the impact that we had on. And I never, at the time, you never think about that impact until now we're in our 30s and 40s, and we look back and we're like, holy shit, that had more of an impact than I really thought at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's why I like our podcast because it triggers those moments in our lives where
that's why I think we're doing this tribute for obvious reasons, but on top of that it really fits into the vibe and what we've been doing here.
Yeah.
Because covering this stuff, like these shows and these movies and everything, they bring out that, oh man, this is how I felt when I watched it.
Yeah.
So, it really just embodies everything that we kind of talk about and what this show's all about.
Yeah. So you guys, I hope that we've covered all your interest in the Next Generation. God, there's just so much. I mean, we could dedicate a whole
even
podcast
just one Star Trek series, and then that doesn't include. I mean, you've got the original series, the Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. Then we have the newer ones, the Picard, Strange New Worlds, Discovery.
Yeah.
Not to mention, like I said, the animated series, and then any films that went along with that. As far and then on top of that, any like spoofs or parodies that come off of that.
Mean,
it's
we're just scratching the surface when it comes to this. So,
but if you haven't watched any Star Trek and you want to get into it, I recommend the Next Generation. It's my favorite, and the TNG movies, those 4 movies are so fucking
solid.
Good.
Yeah,
so
they
good.
are. Yeah, they are. They really are good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up on Next Generation. Next up is Tombstone. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for hanging in there on this extended and very special episode of Culture Copia Podcast. Next up is Tombstone. Matt, I'm going to admit I've only seen this a couple of times, so I'm going to let you take it over from here and do your thing, man.
All right. Ready to take a trip back to 1881?
I am, actually. Especially if it involves, Bill Paxton, Val Kilmer.
Oh my God, dude! Wait,
Michael Douglas.
So we're talking about Tombstone, directed by George P. Cosmatos, written by Kevin Jarre, produced by James Jacks, Sean Daniel, and Bob Mizurowski. Cinematography by William A. Fraker, edited by Frank J. Aristote, Roberto Silvi, and Harvey Rosenstock. There's some names in this, man. Music by Bruce Broughton, released on December 25th, 1993. Made with a budget of $25 million, grossed $73.2 million.
Wow.
Starring, you ready for this? Jesus. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Michael Biehn, Powers Booth, Robert Burke, Dana Delaney, Sam Elliott, Stephen Lang, Joanna Pacula, Bill Paxton, Jason Priestley, Michael Rooker, John Tenney, Billy Zane, and Charlton Heston. That was the cast list that I pulled up, but some honorable mentions I think need to be in there are Thomas Hayden Church.
Oh, really?
John Corbett, Terry O'Quinn, who you might remember from Lost.
Okay.
He was, I can't think of his name, the guy that was in the wheelchair.
Yeah. Oh, Locke?
Yeah, John Locke. And Billy Bob Thornton.
Really?
Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton. I don't know if you remember. He was he was the guy that, he was like the dealer in the saloon. He was he took over, and when Wyatt Earp rolls into town, the saloon owner's like, well, that fella came in here one day slapping people around, sat down and took over the job of the dealer, so then he runs him out. And he's like, we take over, like we're in charge now. Yeah, man. So a little bit about, I'm a huge like history nerd, and I grew up watching westerns and shit like this. So I've read so many different things about
the OK Corral and all that.
OK Corral and Tombstone. So a little bit about Tombstone, Arizona. It was a territory. It's in the southeast corner of the state of Arizona, and at the time it was a boomtown, you know, and it was a new settlement, you know, so that was where a lot of these lawmen and outlaws and stuff went to kind of, you know, like make a name for themselves outside of, you know, hey, we're done with this region, let's go over there and kind of start over, You know, and that's in this movie. That's what Wyatt Earp and his brothers decide to do.
Okay.
So you have Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp, and Morgan Earp. Now we talked about in the last segment, you know, when you're a kid and you look up to these, you know, characters and stuff like that. I was a child, and like the one thing you don't expect from like a young child to say is like, Wyatt Earp was my fucking hero, man. Like I wanted to be Wyatt Earp, dude.
Yeah,
like that was nuts.
That's crazy.
You know, so I don't know. Just again, this was one of those things that was so important to me, and you know, this movie. These guys that were involved in the production of this film, like they did their research. Like, you know, when I go back and I read all these books and I read this stuff about, you know, not only what it was like to be there in those times, but these people who did exist. I mean, this is a true story,
right?
You know, like the Earp brothers, Doc Holliday,
right?
You know, like Johnny Ringo, the Clanton brothers. You know, these were all, you know, these were all real people. Like, and a lot of this, you know, from what I can tell, like, they really they got it spot on, man. Like, they really did. You know, what was it? Wild Bill?
Yeah.
Was that?
Billy the Kid.
No, it was,
Wild Bill Hickok?
Now I can't think. No, it was Bill Brocious. I forgot what they called him. Curly Bill.
Okay.
Curly Bill. That was Powers Booth's character. You know, I mean, all these guys that, I mean, these were like larger than life characters when you watch this film, and then you stop and think about, like, they weren't just characters though, man. Like, these were real fucking people.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, you know, like the whole, a lot of what Doc Holliday does and says in this movie, the Val Kilmer, which this is probably Val Kilmer's best fucking role.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. But like a lot of that stuff, like that was apparently all reported to be true. You know, the whole, when he says, you know, at the gunfight at the OK Corral. And one of the guys says, I got you now, Doc, you son of a bitch. And he says, you're a daisy if you do. And, you know, apparently, like, those were things that he really said to people. Yeah. Like, you know, he was egging them on. Like,
wasn't when in the dying scene when he was looking at his feet, didn't he say something about his feet or something like?
Yeah, he says, well, I'll be damned. Or, is that what he says? And he says, this is funny.
Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, that's why you've got it on your.
Yeah. I have that. I have that on my on top of my foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much you know about Doc Holliday was a dentist.
Yes, I knew that.
And he had tuberculosis.
Yes.
Which is why throughout this film, all the antagonists refer to him as Lunger. And that was like they were poking fun at his
ailment.
Yeah. Like, you know, you're just a Lunger. You know, like that was, you know, because he was coughing up his lungs. So he decided at that point, you know, he was like, well, you know, he was a gambler. And, you know, when he came down with consumption, basically is what they called it at the time, he just kind of turned to, he was just kind of like a basic outlaw, you know. He wasn't a hired gun, he wasn't a lawman or anything, you know. He just kind of was like, I'm just going to live my life, you know, however I want, because I'm going to die.
Yeah,
you know,
and die regardless.
Yeah, but that was the point of that quote, was, you know, he always assumed like he was going to get shot and killed in the middle of a town somewhere in his clothes with his boots on, you know. Laying in a bed looking down at his bare feet was strange to him. That when he knew he was gonna die.
Yeah.
But you know, a hell of a gunman, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that was, you know, they called him the speediest and deadliest man with the 6-gun. So,
and he's a dentist.
He was a dentist, yeah. But I mean, back then, it was like you lived the way you did out of necessity.
Yeah.
Which
just goes to show that he represents no path in life is ever set in stone.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I the older I get, the more I'm realizing that, like, when you start out as a young adult, your life's probably not gonna end the way you think.
Yeah.
Or, like, it just, life is funny like that. Like, it just,
yeah,
you just never know.
Yeah, no, this, and this whole story, it kind of embodies that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking a lot about Doc Holliday, but Wyatt Earp is the main character for, in the most part.
So Wyatt Earp comes to Tombstone to kind of clean up the town, right?
Yeah, comes to Tombstone trying to, he doesn't want to be a lawman anymore. He wants to come out. Him and his brothers are done. We don't want to run around. We don't want to be hired guns. We don't want to be lawmen. We just want to go make some money, spend some time with our families. Mm-hmm. That's why they come in and they take over, like basically the gambling commissions is what they take over. And that's where the Billy Bob Thornton scene comes in and slaps him around and, and he doesn't even know that, because Wyatt Earp is a name.
Right.
But back then, I mean, people didn't know what people looked like unless they had posters up, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which, outlaws had posters up, really. Assassins and, lawmen and stuff like that didn't really, you didn't know what they looked like.
Right.
So people don't know who he is until they hear, somebody says, that's Wyatt Earp. So, they unfortunately get thrust back into the world of, well, now we got to clean up this fucking place. Yeah.
Okay, so let me back up. Okay, so because you don't know anybody, you don't know what anybody looks like, did they send somebody ahead of time to say, hey, Wyatt Earp's coming to town? Or, like, how do they know? Or do you brag?
No,
do you know what that is?
So there was a group of guys called the Cowboys. And they're the antagonists in this film.
Okay.
And they were outlaws. They wore these red sashes.
Uh-huh.
They were led by Johnny Ringo and Curly Bill.
Uh-huh.
But the Clanton brothers were, ran with them. There were some guys, Texas Pete,
uh-huh,
I think was one of the guys' names. And
so do they encounter Wyatt Earp ahead of time and then retreat to like Tombstone?
Yeah, so some of the guys know him.
Okay.
Like there was Creek Johnson and Texas, I think it was Texas Pete is what they called him. Might have been Texas Jack or something. Like they know Wyatt Earp,
Okay.
Like, a lot of these guys did know each other.
Okay.
Because they either had run-ins together or they ran with the same crowds, at one point back east. And but by the time the Earp brothers get to Tombstone, the Cowboys have kind of already made it their home, and they get away with whatever they want because people are afraid of them. And so the Earp brothers, come in. They don't know these guys are there. They just know Tombstone is an up and coming settlement, and they want to go there and make a name for themselves doing something else. That's why they get involved with the gambling commissions, and they just want to make money. They don't want to. We're done cleaning up the streets of towns and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But they're the type of guys that they can't just sit back and justify these cowboys going around getting away with doing whatever they want, hurting people, and
right.
So then they're like, all right, now we gotta be the law again,
God, yeah. So they came into that position hesitantly. It wasn't like they were seeking to do it. It was like they just wanted a place to kick back, retire, enjoy family life.
Yeah, and there's another legend of this time who is actually not featured in this film, but you've probably heard the name before, Bat Masterson.
Yes.
So Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp were like very much involved in that.
Okay.
But he's Bat Masterson, I think, came around a little after these events. He wasn't involved in the gunfight at the OK Corral and things like that. So that's why he wasn't featured in this film, because it just wasn't around that time yet. But there were, I mean, so many things in this. Like, there's even little details. Like, so when the Earps first get to Tombstone, they go past a cemetery, and there's a headstone or a tombstone, whatever you want to call it, in a grave marker in the cemetery, and it reads, "Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44, no less, no more." Apparently, that is a real life grave marker in Tombstone, Arizona.
No shit.
Like, you go there and it's there. Lester Moore was a Wells Fargo agent, and he was murdered in Naco, Arizona in 1880.
Probably investigating a fucking train heist or something. He comes and rolls into town and bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. So, little things like that. Like I said, a lot of the quotes from Doc Holliday. So Doc Holliday, he's out there living his life, doing what he wants to do. He was running around with a female outlaw, who was nicknamed Big Nose Kate.
Okay.
That was like his little, whatever, like kind of a Bonnie and Clyde. Like they'd run through a town, they'd gamble. He was an avid gambler.
Gamble, cheat, steal.
Gamble,
rob,
cheat, steal, get whatever they wanted, and they'd move on to the next town.
Yeah.
So they end up in Tombstone, and they run into the Earps, and Doc Holliday knows just about every fucking body. He knows Wyatt Earp, and they're always friendly with each other, and that's how they kind of get involved there. But I mean, it's one of those things. Like, so the film, it's almost, I don't want to say slow, but it's almost slow to get to the action. But at the same time, you're so like wrapped up, you're so involved in this story. Like, it doesn't matter that, you look at some of those older Westerns where it was like gunfight, and it was just like, it didn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It really didn't. Like, and this film, I think, really proved that it wasn't every scene was full of action. It was, we're telling this story, and this is a true story. These are real people, and this is what happened.
Right.
Was there some action? Yeah. I mean, the end of this film is packed with it.
Yeah.
But getting there, we're telling this story of these people, and to me, it's just so fascinating, to see how it all, because at first you really see like the Earps are just like, they see that the cowboys are running amok, but they just kind of let it be. They're like, it's not our place.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's not our
because they're reluctant to get involved.
Yeah,
all the time
the sheriff and the mayor and the marshal, like, they all come to him and talk to him about, hey, yeah, this is the situation, and they're like, we don't want to be involved in that.
Yeah,
like, it's just, we don't, we don't want anything to do with it. So, but it gets to that point where the cowboys, these outlaws start finding out who these guys are. They're like, that's Wyatt Earp and his brothers. Okay. And they're running with Doc Holliday. We know Doc Holliday, And they're like, that. I think the biggest thing is, they show that when they see that they're running around with Doc Holliday, and they're like, we got to take them down. Because Doc Holliday is like the deadliest man there is,
Yeah, so you get these brothers and with Doc Holliday, and we are not going to, so it's like almost a early political, right, like positioning kind of thing. Like, take them out so that, because together that we wouldn't survive.
Well, there's a lot of that, like dick measuring kind of.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, it sounds like a very, like.
It really was, like you have the scene, one of my favorite scenes is, that Johnny Ringo confronts Doc Holliday in the bar.
Johnny Ringo, is that Bill Paxton?
That was Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn.
Bill
Okay.
Paxton was Morgan Earp.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Johnny Ringo confronts Doc Holliday. He's probably the only person who's not afraid of Doc Holliday. Everybody else, like you can tell, like even when they're kind of trying to laugh it off, like it's like they're like, that dude could fucking kill me.
Yeah.
But he does, Johnny Ringo wants to show his speed, so he draws his gun and he does he's flipping it around.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And everybody's like, yeah, like cheering in the bar and stuff, And then Doc Holliday takes it. He's got a tin mug, kind of like what we're drinking out of. He knocks it back, drinks his whiskey, and then starts flipping the little mug on his hands because he's like, and he's just mocking him, like right to his face, like, yeah, look,
I can do the same thing with a mug.
I can do the same thing with a mug, and I'm not even gonna draw my weapon because you don't
know what the fuck you're doing.
You don't even mean that to me.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those like you're so insignificant, I won't even draw my gun.
Right.
I'll just do it with a cup.
Right, because I can demonstrate the same thing without having to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and they do show, like Doc Holliday was hitting it hard, man. He was partying, there's a scene where Wyatt Earp comes to him and he's like, he's been at it all night, gambling and drinking. He's like, you need to go home. But it's still, I mean, just to know that these guys, it's kind of like, I think we talked about it when we talked about Dances with Wolves. Like, these were fucking men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't even think I could last 2 days just living there, let alone like.
Well, you think that, but okay, like I think about that every once in a while. Like, if somehow I could go back and if I went back in time.
Yeah.
I am who I am right now, but I went back to 1817. Would I survive?
Right.
I know a ton of shit that even they didn't know, part of basic education.
Yeah.
Like physics and geology and biology and I don't know. I think about that from time to time. Like,
oh, dude,
if I could go back in time, like, how advanced would we be? Like, if I was transported back in time.
Yeah.
Like, how? Just by like elementary school, education.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, what? Like 10 or 25% of the people back then could read.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you say that, because to be in a profession like Doc Holliday, he was a smart fucking person.
Absolutely.
He was educated, and it's that same scene where he's egging on Johnny Ringo this whole movie. I don't know how much of that was real, like, if Doc Holliday was really like pushing Johnny Ringo like that.
He probably had a little bit of a death wish. So he was tempting destiny in that sense, right?
Yeah, there's the scene that he's talking to Big Nose Kate, and he was like, he says, he's talking about Johnny Ringo right in front of his face. And he says, that's Johnny Ringo, darling. Do I hate him? And she goes, you don't even know him. And then he starts spewing Latin. He says, Doc Holliday says, in vino veritas, which was in wine we trust, because he was a drunkard.
Uh-huh.
But then Johnny Ringo starts coming back to him with some Latin that he knows. And they're talking back and forth in Latin. He was like, it seems Johnny Ringo's an educated man. Now I really hate him.
Right.
And it was one of those things, like, because it really was like, people they weren't educated. Like you said, I mean, you got the minimal, like, hey, you know what you need to know now. And
you know what you need to know to survive.
Yeah, we've taught you what you need to know to survive. Now just go work.
Right.
Go work, because that was what you had to do back. It was like, these like I said, Tombstone wasn't even a city; it was just a settlement at the time. This was an up and coming like town. That was, people had to work and work and work to get these towns up. Because it was all just desert.
Which is probably why you don't see a problem with obesity back then either, right?
Oh, exactly. Well, they probably, They worked and worked. They didn't live long enough to sit around and get fat.
Right. Or even like, like we eat beef and chicken and all this. You probably got chicken once or twice a year maybe.
Right.
Most of it was probably like corn and potatoes or.
Well, a lot of meats back then were they salt cured them.
Oh yeah.
That's where like beef jerky and stuff comes from because they didn't have refrigeration.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. But there were a lot of things, I talked about the little details. So the director actually was insistent on all the cast members grew their own facial hair. They wanted it to look authentic. So all those mustaches, those glorious really? Mustaches. I think there was one exception. I think it was Jason Priestley. I think he was the exception because he was working on something else at the time. Another movie or show or something. Might have been when he might have still been in 90210. I don't know. But he was going back and forth working on this and another project. So he couldn't, he had to be able to take the, so there, I think it was him. I could be wrong on that, but there was one actor that actually wore like a fake mustache. But the rest of these guys grew out their own facial hair, man.
That's cool.
Yeah, it really kind of was. Have you watched that Val Kilmer documentary on Prime?
No.
It's called Val.
No, because I thought it would be too sad.
It's really sad. But he I didn't know this. He documented like his whole life. He had like a camcorder, like a little video camera that he carried around with him everywhere. So there's tons of footage of like him hanging out with actors behind the scenes of like Tombstone, Top Gun, like all the stuff he did, and like just them fucking around, pounding whatever, like hanging out, like there's like footage of him and Kurt Russell like hanging out on this movie and shit, and like being goofy together and stuff. It's really cool,
That's cool.
Man. Yeah, but
yeah, I couldn't do it because before Val Kilmer really got famous, he was in a movie called Real Geniuses.
Yeah.
And that's one of my all-time favorite movies from back in the day, like in the 80s.
He was,
And then he became Batman.
Yeah.
And then he was in Top Gun.
Real Genius, that was the college movie, right?
Yes.
And he wore like the bunny slippers.
Yes. He was like the extremely intelligent party guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was like super genius, but he was a fucking fuck up.
It was Van Wilder before Van Wilder.
Absolutely it was. Yeah.
I think I remember when Van Wilder came out, I remember thinking like
that's good. Yeah.
That's Real Genius.
Yeah.
Like that's the same movie. Yeah. Cuz he was there forever.
Yeah, he'd been there like
7-8 years and
like
could have done anything he wanted,
but he was still stuck in that party mode, college,
kind of lazy.
Yeah, lazy.
Didn't apply himself. Yeah. I remember that movie. That's a good movie. I haven't watched that in a long time.
It is a good movie. Yeah, so like I had a little bit of an affinity towards Val Kilmer even before Val Kilmer became famous, and like more well known. I mean, I think he probably blew up in Top Gun. I mean, yeah, that was
late 80s, early 90s was definitely because then this came out. He did that. What was that movie he did with Brando?
Oh, Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, so that's another one that he was real big in, and then he with Al Pacino.
Was it? He was in Willow.
Are you thinking of Tom Cruise?
No, Tom Cruise was in that unicorn movie.
I thought that was Willow.
No, that's Legend.
Oh, that is Legend.
With Tim Curry. Tim Curry plays the devil in that movie.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe he was.
Val Kilmer was in Willow.
Holy shit! I didn't even think about that.
What a great fucking act. He's one of those like I think a lot of people don't think about. Val Kilmer, but he's probably one of my top 5 actors.
Did he pass or is he still? Because I know he wasn't
still around.
Is he? Because I know he wasn't doing good.
He's not. Yeah. No, I would definitely like when you finally get around to like thinking, okay, I can sit through it now and it won't hit me so hard. Like when you got to be feeling in that mood, because if you're feeling down and you watch it, you're gonna be like.
No. So there was a movie that I watched right after my mom passed. We're talking about passing parents. Big Fish. You ever see Big Fish?
Dude, okay.
Whatever you do, at least give yourself like 6 months to a year Don't watch Big Fish.
That is one of my favorite movies.
Oh my god.
It is probably my favorite book because it's based off a book.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I love it so much. That was my dad.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Now you're
Dude,
now you're getting to me and I'm going to start crying. That is my dad. That is why I have read that book so many times. I've watched that movie so many times. He was this larger than life guy. He had all these stories, and over the years, as I got older, I'm like, do I believe this shit? Because that was kind of what that movie was.
Yeah.
And then, and then you start to find it. You meet the people, because that was the thing at the end of the movie. He's meeting all these people. He's like, he was telling the truth.
Yeah.
To some extent. Yeah. Some of the stories were exaggerated. But
recollection. Or
I actually just made that joke so when we do the viewing and his funeral and everything. I said it's gonna be like the end of Big Fish.
Yeah,
all these people are gonna come out of the woodwork and we're gonna be like, oh, that's the person he's been telling me this story about that I didn't know if it was fucking true all these years.
Tori and I were just getting together, man. It had only been a few months since my mom had passed.
Yeah.
And we were sitting at my house watching movies. She's like, I don't know if I'll watch it, whatever, And
yeah.
Dude, I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
Lost it. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, Tori and I hadn't been together more than, God, a few months, man.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't much longer. I don't know how long it was, but fuck. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I to this day, I can't watch it.
No, I still love it. I haven't tried to watch the movie or read the book since because it's all just happened. Yeah. I think it's gonna take me some time. Yeah. But that has always reminded me of my dad, and that's why I loved it so much. Because, like I said, I mean, that was him. He always I can't tell you how many times he started a conversation with me like, did I ever tell you about the time? And it's like, here comes another fucking story. And but it was crazy because a lot of, it was these like big, grand stories. And then you come to find out like, holy shit, dude, like, he worked, he was the definition of jack of all trades.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He drove an ice cream truck.
Okay.
Like, the do ding ding. Yeah, he drove one of those. I couldn't tell you like all the different jobs. Oh, I did this. I did that. And I was like, as a kid, I was like, oh, cool. And then I got a little older as a teenager. I'm like, is he lying to me? Is he making shit up? And then I would, go through like some old pictures or something. Oh. That's him doing the thing that he said he did.
Yeah, you didn't believe it at the time.
And I was like, proof. And there was just so many things, like, I don't know. He told me a story one time. He smoked weed with Willie Nelson.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, come to find out it's true.
Yeah, well, it's plausible the way Willie Nelson smokes weed. You know?
He met him at like a hotel, or something. And
my mom was like that in a way. Like she would tell me stories of when she was younger and stuff, and then you come to find out it was fucking true. Yeah. Like,
I don't know. No, it's yeah. So
I watched Big Fish one time. And that was the last time. Yeah.
To answer your question, yes, I've seen Big Fish. One of my favorites. One of my favorite books. One of my favorite movies. But yeah, it definitely, I could see why you would feel that way.
I can't touch it. So, back to Tombstone.
Yeah.
What was another favorite of his? Like, did he like Young Guns or Young Guns 2? Because that's
somewhat.
I like Young Guns. So that was my like childhood Western movie.
Yeah. I mean, he liked a lot of the old Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, stuff. I remember
was he into Deadwood?
Oh, yeah.
Deadwood was good.
Oh, yeah. He watched all of Deadwood.
Yeah.
Even Westworld. Because that was a crossover
old school Westworld or new school?
he watched like the new series, but I know he had seen the movie before.
Okay,
like
the
old
movie and then the old. Yeah,
that's what I've seen was the old movie. I haven't
like the
seen
'70s movie.
Yeah,
and
with
then there was like
James Brolin and
yeah.
Yul Brynner.
Yeah, and then
oh, The Magnificent Seven.
That was another one.
That was another one.
Okay.
Yeah, with Yul Brynner. That was that was a good one. Yeah, he no, Westworld. He really liked that. That was a perfect combination of, like I said when we were talking about
sci-fi
Star Trek.
and westerns.
He loved sci-fi.
Dude.
Yeah, so
I bet it was.
Well, and that's the thing too. I watched a lot of sci-fi and western stuff with him growing up, and like obviously the Back to the Future trilogy was one of those things.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future 3.
I was gonna say when he goes back to the western, I bet that was his jam. Dude.
Will not only forever be my favorite. That's my favorite of the 3.
Okay, I could give you that.
It's my favorite. I don't objectively is it the best? Probably not, but it's my personal favorite, and I think it's always gonna be, and it's always gonna be one of my favorite movies, just to kind of because it's just, it's one of those things again. It was a combination of that sci-fi and western, and but yeah, no, this one, I mean, Tombstone is I would say is my third favorite movie. Which I mentioned to you earlier. But I would say it is probably my most quoted movie. Like, I will literally... Like, sometimes I will get movie quotes and dialogue stuck in my head. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, the same way that you get a song stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And the same way that if there's a song stuck in your head, you want to sing it. And I will literally, like, I'll just be, like, at the house doing whatever. I'm, like, in the kitchen, like, washing dishes or something. And I'm like, I'm your Huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like someone just walked over your grave. And it's just like, and Amy will be like,
what the fuck
are you talking to yourself? Like, what are you doing in there?
Yeah.
It's just one of those, I don't know. But this was, I mean, we get to the OK Corral, and that was one of the biggest gunfights of the Old West. All these guys, and like I said, this was true. The Clanton brothers, Curly Bill, Johnny Ringo, whoever else was involved in that. You got the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday on the other side. And apparently there's a part right before they start shooting where Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer, he winks at, it wasn't Ike Clanton, it was the other Clanton, it was Thomas Hayden Church.
Okay.
And he shoots him a little wink. Well, apparently that was Val Kilmer. That was his little ad lib moment where he shoots him a wink, and he's like, "My God!" Like they know, like, oh man, he's out for blood now.
Yeah.
So that was good, and and then unfortunately we see the Cowboys coming back at him. It takes out Morgan Earp, which was Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
And, that was rough, because, Wyatt Earp's like, I didn't even want to be involved in this shit, and now my brother's gone.
Down. And now I'm fucking mad, too, right?
And they go after Virgil, the older brother, that was Sam Elliott, and he survives, but he's like, I think, paralyzed for the rest of his life. I think he can't use his fucking arm anymore, and Sam Elliott, God, dude, like, what a, like, Southern cowboy gentleman, like,
who never ages, it seems.
I think about, like, in that scene when they say you'll never use your arm again, and his wife's all crying, and he goes, I still got one good arm to hold you with. And that, dude, that was my dad. That would have been that's a line he would have laid on my mom.
Yeah.
If he had, like, if something had happened to, like, his arm, they said you'll never use this, he would have looked, she'd have been hysterical, and he'd have stayed calm and would have said something just like that. I still got one good arm to hold you with. That, like, that kind of, that, like I said, that Southern cowboy gentleman. Yeah. You just, God, dude, like, again, like, I go back to what I was saying, like, these were fucking men, like, those are men, dude, like. Fuck.
We're spoiled with modern technologies and the way we live, and God, it's crazy.
So I love, again, like I said, this is one of my probably most quoted, movies. There's so many things that, the Doc Holliday,
Yeah.
I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game. And Johnny Ringo's like, ain't none of you got the guts to play for blood, and, Wyatt Earp, I think probably the quote that gives me the most chills when he says, "You tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me." But he actually, this was a lot of, like I said, they really did their research. So there were the couple guys that I said that were kind of friendly with him, but they were part of the Cowboys. And they roll up after all this happens because the Cowboys come after their wives and shit. And they're like, hey, we're done with them. You don't go around messing with women. And then, later on, he does recruit them to take out the rest of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, one of those guys was Michael Rooker, who he's Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, yeah.
He was also in Mallrats.
Yep.
He was in The Walking Dead.
Yep.
He was Daryl Dixon's brother.
Yeah, Merle.
He was Merle Dixon. He's been in so many things, man. Like, this is what I remember him from when I was a kid.
Okay.
Like, he was McMasters.
I always remember him from Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise.
Yeah. That was the race car movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's one of those guys that you see him all the time.
Never know who.
People probably don't know his name, but they're like, oh, he was that guy in this movie. Or he was this, great actor.
Yeah.
He was even, he was in the Suicide Squad, the new one, the James Gunn.
Yeah.
He was in the beginning. He was Savant.
Yep.
The guy with the ball.
Yep.
Yeah. The long white hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they this, like I said, as far as I can tell, I mean, who knows, with history books and things like that, like they had such a hard time keeping track of everything back then, but I want to believe that most of this was pretty accurate, and from what I can tell, a lot of it was.
I think I remember reading something on it that they really strove to make it as accurate as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's why it did so well in theaters, is because it was as accurate as possible portrayal of that whole story, right?
Oh, for sure. They didn't take a lot of liberties on themselves of like, we're going to change this and make this seem more heroic or whatever. It was just like, no, this is the story. This is what happened.
Yeah.
Down to even, when they meet up at the creek and Kurt Russell, Wyatt Earp is just walking across that, boom, boom, shooting them down. Like, apparently that was, according to the guys that were there, McMasters, Holliday, Johnson, like all those guys, they were like, yeah, this dude was fucking nuts. Like, that happened. He just walked right out there and was like, I ain't hiding in the brush. Like, I'm going to walk out here and just shoot you all down.
Do we think that it's easier to be like that way because life expectancy was so short? Yeah. That it was like, life is hard anyway. If I'm gonna go out guns blazing.
Probably, like you said with Doc Holliday. I mean, in a way, he had a death wish. He knew he was gonna die.
Yeah.
He had consumption, and he was like, oh, fuck it.
What do I? Yeah, I'm gonna die anyway.
I'm gonna die. I might as well make the most of it.
And for like Wyatt Earp, it's like, well, I'm gonna die sooner rather than later anyway. Either it's by rattlesnake or in a shootout, or some smart ass motherfucker that wants to like challenge me in a shootout. Yeah.
And that was another one of those, like, I love those Doc Holliday moments, man, when they're like, you ever heard of anything? Or he goes, you ever seen anything like that? And he's like, I never even heard of anything like that. And they go, where is he now? And Doc Holliday says, down by the creek, walking on water. He did. It was kind of miraculous.
Yeah.
He walked out there and didn't get hit by a single shot. And then that was another, in that same scene, they're like, Doc, what are you, all involved in this for? Like, this ain't your fight.
Right.
Because obviously Wyatt Earp had his agenda. The ex-Cowboys had theirs. Like, they're like, why are you dragged into this? And he says, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And he goes, I got plenty of friends. He says, well, I don't. It was one of those, like, hey,
ride or die,
motherfucker. Yeah, dude. And I always loved, and that's one of the things I think that really sticks out to me in this movie is that, like you said, it's that feeling, that ride or die. We're in this, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like it. You come to me, you got an issue, you got a problem.
I was just getting ready to say,
I'm
there's
there.
very few people that I've met that I feel that
Yeah.
way, like where I am
Yeah.
ride or die. Like I got you no matter what,
Yeah.
you know.
You call me up tomorrow and you're like, I got a situation we need to take care of.
We need to take care of it. Yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And that was these guys, even on the other side, even the Cowboys, like, even though they were doing pretty awful shit.
Yeah, they were still.
You still look at them going, man, those guys stuck together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, that was the way things were back then.
Yeah.
It was like, we ride with you. We're together here.
It's funny that because it's still it's a social. Why humanity is fruitful as it is because of relationships like that, right? Like we can compartmentalize, like we have our wives, okay, that's a whole separate thing, but
right.
like what is it, like bromance, or not, I don't want to even say bromance because it's the wrong word to say, but like just you meet these. I have probably, I can count on one hand the amount of friends that I'm ride or die with. You know what I'm saying? Like you, my buddy Nate, my buddy Dave that I've known since fucking like high school.
Right.
Shit, maybe only 3. Like that's but that's because I don't know. It's I can't explain it, but I think it's part of that human nature where we need those kind of us as extroverts need those kind of relationships, right? Like I gotta have a couple of those, and
sure.
it could be something as simple as hitting my buddy and be like, hey, you want to get on Call of Duty?
Yeah.
Right. Like the shit like that, like just.
Oh yeah.
I got my buddy Jim would be one too. So there's 4. He's getting ready to move, and I'm like, if you need help, man, let me know.
Yeah.
Come. Just random shit, but yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what I mean.
It's the same thing for women too. Like they gotta have, with women that I know at least, gotta have at least some.
Oh yeah.
That one person, maybe, but I happen to have 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're lucky if you got a handful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No. So, like I said, we get to the point he walks right through the creek, unscathed,
blasting.
Yeah, and takes down Curly Bill. That was huge. That was like, Curly Bill's dead. You got Johnny Ringo.
Yeah,
he's gonna, and then you get to that famous shootout. Johnny Ringo's supposed to meet up with Wyatt Earp, and who shows up instead? John Henry Doc Holliday.
That's right.
That's when he walks out from behind, and he was like, he walks up, he just sees a silhouette, he can't tell that it's Doc instead of Wyatt Earp. He says, beginning to think you weren't going to show, and that's when you get the famous, I'm your Huckleberry. Yeah, and, dude, just fucking classic. I could watch that scene over and over again.
Yeah.
He just say when, and he just happens to be faster, and he gets him, man.
But he's injured. He gets him.
He gets him, but his illness is taking him.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's the next scene. You get Doc Holliday's death scene, which actually Val Kilmer, I don't know if it was his idea, but I know I saw it was either read in an interview or maybe in his book that I read, or maybe it was in that documentary somewhere. He was laying on a bed of ice.
Yeah, that's normal for the time.
Yeah, but it, like, they wanted to make him shake, and like and look, pale, and like, and it worked. Yeah. Yeah, so they put.
Oh, so you're talking about actually filming the scene? They laid him on.
Yeah, yeah. They laid Val Kilmer. Well, they had like a sheet or something over it, but he was laying on a bed of ice, and they made so he would look all weak and cold and.
Oh shit!
Yeah, yeah. So
that's like taking method acting to a whole new level.
I know, right? And then, Wyatt Earp and the other ex-Cowboys go and run out the rest of the Cowboys, and that's where we get to now. That's pretty much the end of it, but I do want to end with, especially since, and I'm glad you brought up Big Fish, because I wanted to talk about, the legacy you leave behind.
Yeah.
And we're talking about my dad, and we're talking like you mentioned Big Fish, and and your mom, and anybody else who's lost, somebody that, especially these people that they almost seem larger than life.
Yeah.
And can you imagine Wyatt Earp lived long enough to see some of the early Western films be made? Can you imagine being in that position, being of that status, and then living long enough to see films made about the types of things that you did and the people that were probably featured? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like to see, like I said, I don't know if there were any movies about him at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There might have been, but even if not, like, I'm sure there was something about like Bat Masterson, who he knew and was close with. Like, could you imagine living long enough to see like a movie made about a guy you knew and it was like, yeah, man, we did do that shit. We lived that. Like
there are a couple instances that I think of. Did you ever see? I think it's called Drive with.
Is that Ryan Gosling?
No. That Driver. It's about Formula One, and it's got one of the Hemsworth brothers.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
It's back in the 70s.
Was it Chris Hemsworth?
I think it was. Okay. And I forget the Australian actor's name. Mm-hmm. He was in Inglourious Bastards, I think it was. Anyway.
Okay.
Just what you just described reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Where, there's this feud or whatever, like this story, and then you live long enough to like see that story portrayed in such a profound method or media with movies being and the impact that it has on culture.
Right.
So like that's what I'm trying to get at is no, I couldn't. Imagine imagine right now we're doing this podcast and let's say hypothetically this podcast blows up and this is what like makes us
right.
And in 50 years from now we live long enough to see us portrayed in a virtual reality holographic movie type thing or whatever it is, like that would be the same thing. So no, I couldn't imagine that and the mind fuck that would be. Imagine, like I hope Wyatt Earp always seemed like a humble person, or at least he was kind of portrayed as kind of humble, like he was a bad motherfucker and he knew he was, but he never went around like pumping his chest, did he?
No,
I never got that impression.
No, and
the
that's
stories in the movies.
Yeah, that's kind of like what you get out of this is like a lot. Like I said, a lot of people didn't even know who he was until they heard the name, and then it was like, oh shit, you're Wyatt Earp.
Yeah.
And if he had to, he'd be like, yeah, I'm Wyatt Earp.
I'm Wyatt Earp.
Like,
get the fuck back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just to answer your question. No, I couldn't imagine 50 years from now sitting in a virtual theater watching a holographic film on Culture Copia podcast.
Right. Yeah. No.
So, well, what do you think, Matt? You want to go get some Mexican food?
Yeah, let's get some fucking food.
I'm hungry, man. I'm getting hungry. You guys, I just want to say that as we wrap up the first season of Culture Copia podcast, this has been an awesome experience. I've really enjoyed our time.
Yeah.
And I've kind of needed this too. And I really hate to say that we're ending on such a sad note.
Yeah.
This was not our intention as we kind of went through and kind of planned out the season. But Russ Manion was a man of stature, a man of, he was a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And my only regret, well, a couple of regrets. I regret that you're going through what you're going through because I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
The other one is I didn't get to know him like I feel like I should have.
Yeah.
But that's because I mean, I remember coming over to your house the first time for a Halloween party, and I was in my 30s,
Yeah.
you know, and you were in like your 20s,
Yeah.
right? So, and you were still staying at home, and it was like I remember being
living in the basement.
I remember being so different. It's like because I remember like it's been so long since I've been over to somebody's house where I'm like, hey, mom and dad, how you doing?
Right.
You know, because I was in my 30s, you know,
Yeah.
at that point.
For
So,
sure.
Matt, you have my condolences for you and your entire family, and I know what you're going through, and I want you to know, and even in front of all of our listeners, the few that we have right now, I'm here for you. I know what you're going through, and if you ever need anybody to talk to, like I got you, because I know what it's like. You know, I really do. And I guess we're gonna end it on that. Stay tuned for season 2. We got some different formats coming up.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff.
A lot of fun stuff. We're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna try and market this season, learn some things in the process, kind of use this as like a guinea pig, and then coming up season 2. Where the whole idea is to, I don't know about you, Matt, but my whole idea about starting this whole process was to impact somebody's life in a positive way, and hopefully we've done that, and that's our main goal throughout this, and getting it in front of people is to, you know, get you to open your eyes maybe to some movies or culture that you haven't experienced before, and take a positive experience from that. So, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to season 1 of Culturecopia podcast. We're going to be out with season 2 probably a couple of months from today. So
look out for it.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, man. I love you, Dad.
We love you, Russ. Rest in peace, man.